Chapter 2995. It's impossible to become a progenitor using fate law. Forcefully breaking through to replace fate law is just courting death. She's smart enough to give up on fate law and become a progenitor using astral source. Once she becomes a progenitor, she can either cultivate fate law again or not. She has the initiative. Big Sis sighed. There's no need to cultivate it again. Butian's expression turned ugly. If she still wants to cultivate fate law, she only needs to reverse the karmic arrangement to take it back from us. Can that be done? Luyin was surprised. Was fate law really that easy to transfer? Butian bitterly replied, because we're willing. Starsabil's voice was hoarse. No one is willing to bear fate law. The more one understands fate law, the more they don't want to touch it. She knows this, which is why we'll agree without hesitation if we can return fate law to her. We're equivalent to her vessels that carry her power. Butian looked at Fate Daughter, his eyes filled with killing intent. Luyin looked at Fate Daughter. A black hole had already appeared in the sky, and it would soon appear to suppress Tianqiong. This woman had also walked another path, one that could transfer power. This path was not impossible, as long as she successfully broke through to progenitor, she could take back fate law at any time. From the looks of it, Butian and the others would not refuse, and it would not be easy for them to do so. After all, they were facing an existence that had already become a progenitor. Was that why Fate Daughter had told him not to interfere? Only by interfering could he prevent her from taking back fate law. If he did not interfere, she would have the initiative. Big Sis sighed. In the past, breaking through to progenitor was a very serious matter, and it was difficult for even 1 in 100 half-progenitors to succeed. Now things have changed, especially since your senior brother Qingping's path has opened up a new world for many. I'm guessing that this woman came up with this method because she saw your senior brother break through and had a sudden inspiration. Her astral source power was not something that she cultivated overnight, Luyin said. Big Sis thought about it and agreed. Fate Daughter had been secretly cultivating astral source for a long time, and no one knew when she had started. She had this plan long ago. Lu Bujing's expression was as ugly as if he had swallowed a dead fly. This woman kept saying that she wanted to kill him for fate, but in the end she had abandoned fate law to become a progenitor. What a hypocrite! Kai Er's expression was equally ugly. She had always wanted to surpass Fate Daughter's beauty, but now her appearance and cultivation had slowed down. In the starry sky, Destiny Girl looked up at the sky and watched as the tribulation origin black hole slowly took shape. She smiled and said, Master, you taught me the method of fate, but it's just a fate you set. Whether you're here or not, I can't replace you. I understood this from the first day I became your disciple. That's why I painstakingly cultivated the method of karma transfer. I know that as long as you're here, my karma transfer technique will never succeed. But this era is different. You're not here. Even so, I still can't replace you. I don't dare to think about what kind of fate you've set for yourself. These words were meant for her own ears as well as a farewell to fate. The moment she transferred fate law to Butian and the others, she was no longer fate law's successor. She had gone against fate. Her astral source overflowed from her body. The sky of suppression was about to appear. Very few people would be happy when facing an origin tribulation. Fate Daughter was very happy. She was certain that she would be able to pass the origin tribulation of the ancestor realm. She would become an ancestor in the end. Because she had cultivated Fate Dao before, regardless of whether she continued to cultivate or not, she now had a direction to follow. In the end, she would become a sequence law expert. She didn't want to replace Fate law, but she could still become one of the peak experts of an era. Mo Shang had spent countless years to reach this level. She didn't need it. This day was the fate that she had set for herself. Her astral source overflowed completely. The sky of suppression was formed and pressed down on her. Fate Daughter smiled. She raised her hand. She had a way to break the sky of suppression. Suddenly her expression changed. A line appeared in front of her. It was the line of fate. One end was life, the other end was death. This was the power she had cultivated for many years. Why did it appear? She had clearly transferred fate law to Butian and the others. Why did the power of fate still appear? The line only appeared for an instant, but it caused the progenitor realm origin tribulation to undergo a tremendous change. This was because the line belonged to the power of fate. Fate Daughter had already transferred the power of Fate Law before the Origin Tribulation appeared. The sudden appearance of the power of Fate Law under the Origin Tribulation was clearly an external force. Fate Daughter stared in shock at the line descending from the Origin Tribulation black hole. It was another line, but this time it didn't belong to her. It belonged to Fate. The Origin Tribulation black hole had drawn out the power of Fate that had yet to reach the progenitor realm. No, how can this be? Master. Fate Daughter cried out in despair. Lu Yin and the others watched in shock. The line slowly descended from above Fate Daughter's head and wrapped around her. Then, under everyone's horrified gazes, Fate Daughter turned into a line and suddenly disappeared. The starry sky instantly returned to normal. Everyone was silent as they stared blankly. What had happened? Lu Yin's eyelids twitched. The power of Fate Law had interfered, causing the Origin Tribulation to change drastically. The suppression of the sky had disappeared, and the line of Fate Law had descended. Fate Daughter had transferred the power of Fate Law, but in the end she herself had been taken away by fate. She had been defeated by Fate Law, which was also a type of Fate Law. She had thought that she could break through the progenitor realm by transferring Fate Law, but had all of this been in the eyes of Fate Law? Could Fate Law not resist? A figure appeared on the fifth mainland and then tore through the void to descend. It was Lu Yuan, who had suddenly come out of seclusion. There's the power of Fate Law. Little Seven, what happened? Lu Yin hadn't expected that even Forefather Lu Yuan would be awakened. He explained the situation to Lu Yuan. Forefather Lu Yuan sneered. How foolish. She actually thought that she could escape Fate Law. Outsiders can't imagine how sinister that woman is. She grew up in schemes and she even planned to break through the progenitor realm. How could she be schemed against by her own disciple? This Fate Daughter reaped what she sowed. We don't care what happens to her, but it's very troublesome that she turned into a line and disappeared. She became Fate Law's weapon. I told you that Fate Law would return and I was right. Lu Yin's expression turned solemn. Fate Law's weapon? Lu Yuan snorted. That woman is proficient in using people as weapons. She decides her own fate and the fate of others. What's competing with her isn't combat strength, but the change in the future. Lu Yin fell silent. Fate Law would return in the end. Is she an enemy or a friend? Lu Yin asked. Lu Yuan thought about it. She's neither an enemy nor a friend. She has her own plans. Who knows what she's thinking? But don't worry, I've beaten her up before. Even if she appears, she won't dare to do anything to you. Big Sis was surprised. Senior has beaten up Fate Law before? Lu Yuan was smug. Of course. Lu Yin was speechless. What was there to be smug about? Wasn't he inviting disaster for himself? Third Uncle Lu Bujing had brought old Monster Emo to him, so Lu Yuan wouldn't invite Fate Law to him, right? Possible he naturally didn't want to make enemies, especially with a strange enemy like Fate Law. The Fate Daughter's attempt to break through the progenitor realm had failed, and the outcome had been tragic. Countless people had seen it, and the news would soon spread throughout the Six Directions Society. Even though Heavens Above Heaven had lost an expert, the Six Directions Society felt more at ease. It wasn't easy to break through the progenitor realm, so how could they succeed one after another? Lu Yin didn't expect too much from Elder Chan, Leng Qing and Qing Ping. He just hoped that Lu Bujing wouldn't be so anxious. Lu Yin didn't need to worry, as Lu Bujing had already given up on breaking through the progenitor realm. Fate Daughter had prepared such an extreme method, even giving up on Fate Law's cultivation method, but she still failed. He knew that one of the three sons' ancestral chi was Fate, and it was even harder to break through than Fate Daughter. He didn't want to become a threat. Fate Daughter's failure was also a warning to the other experts who were preparing to break through the progenitor realm, offsetting the ease brought by Qing Ping's success. Breaking through the progenitor realm was always a serious topic and there were rarely any shortcuts. Even if there were, it wasn't something that ordinary people could find. The more shortcut one took, the harder it was to take. Ancestor, I want to go to the outer realm. Lu Yin told Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan was puzzled. What for? Lu Yin explained his thoughts to her. Lu Yuan listened quietly. You want to go to a parallel universe with a different flow of time, and you also want to see the situation in the outer realm. These aren't a problem, and with your current strength, even if you meet a powerhouse in the outer realm, you won't be in danger. You can go. But you have to be fully prepared. No one knows how many parallel universes there are, and an unstoppable powerhouse might appear in one of them. That would be troublesome. Lu Yin grunted. I understand. Also. He paused and looked at Lu Yuan. I have divine power. Lu Yuan was stunned and stared blankly at Lu Yin. What did you say? Lu Yin saw Lu Yuan's reaction and knew that Forefather Tianyi hadn't told him. Perhaps Lu Yuan was in seclusion, or perhaps he didn't want to talk about it. If it was the latter, then Forefather Tianyi was too tolerant of him. I've cultivated divine power, said Yi Futian. Lu Yuan stared at Lu Yin in a daze, his gaze complicated. Lu Yin was nervous, not knowing what Lu Yuan would think of this. Everyone had their own understanding of the Eternals. Forefather Tianyi might acknowledge him, but that didn't mean that Lu Yuan would. After a while, Lu Yuan raised his hand and slowly placed it on Lu Yin's shoulder. He squeezed it hard. The descendants of the Lu family are strong and won't be controlled. If you want to cultivate, then cultivate. Lu Yin stared into Lu Yuan's eyes. Lu Yuan didn't shy away and stared back at him. Forefather, aren't you afraid that I'll be controlled by divine power? I am. Then what? What else can I do? I can only trust you. Little Seven, you were carefree in the first half of your life, but in the second half, you have to bear the heaviest burden of humanity. There's no time for you to be controlled, so you should take care of your own matters. All I can do is support you. Lu Yin's heart was heavy. Lu Tianyi had said something similar before. The Lu family was his strongest backing and he would do his best to welcome them back. The Lu family would not disappoint him. I understand, Forefather, Lu Yin said. Chapter 2996. Lu Yuan nodded and coughed. If you don't mind me asking, how did you cultivate your divine force? Lu Yin answered, I accidentally encountered some divine force and it entered my body. Lu Yuan's face twitched. After thinking for a long time he muttered, Don't be so despicable in the future. With that he left without looking back. Lu Yin found it funny. Looking at Lu Yuan's departing figure, the old man's mood was heavier than his. Lu Yin cultivated his divine force, but they allowed him to do as he pleased. The old man must be in a bad mood right now. In the starry sky tree, Lu Yuan returned and went straight to Lu Tianyi. Little Seven cultivated his divine force? Lu Tianyi nodded calmly. He told me. What did you say? I trust him. Lu Yuan clutched his forehead. My head hurts. Lu Tianyi looked at Lu Yuan. I really trust him. Lu Yuan sighed. I don't. You don't understand the characteristics of the only true God's power. If it's so easy to break free from control, why would the Eternals trust it? It's not just a kind of power, it's also a belief. Then what do you plan to do? Lu Tianyi looked at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan shook his head. Keep an eye on Little Seven. If he's controlled by the divine force, bring him back. Lu family will bear his responsibility. At worst, the family will take care of him from now on. Let this child accompany me in Lu Tianjing. He likes freedom. Lu Yuan was silent for a moment. If it's a matter of survival, we'll all die before him. At that time he'll be free. Lu Tianyi looked at Lu Yuan and found that the old man had aged a lot. Half a month passed. During this time, Lu Yin found Grandpa Chan and invited him to go to the outer region with him. At the same time he decided on a candidate. Firstly, the Hellfire Dragon could only be used as a mount. Secondly, he needed someone to run errands. Jiangchen was one of them. Lu Yin decided on Ghost Monkey. Ghost Monkey could hide in the shadow. Even Ancestor Realm experts might not be able to detect him if they weren't paying attention. After all, he wasn't weak and had received part of progenitor Wuxiang's memories. There was one more person that he had decided to bring along after much consideration. Zhou Ran. This trip to the outer realms might be dangerous, or it might just be a time-consuming trip. Having a beautiful maid who could make him tea was not a bad idea. Most importantly, he did not dare to leave Zhou Ran in above heaven. She definitely had an unclear relationship with fate. If she remembered anything, it would be difficult to control her in above heaven. He couldn't let old ancestor Tianyi stay in above heaven all year round. The only thing he could do was to bring this uncertain factor along with him. Of course, it would also be dangerous for him, but he would rather keep him by his side for observation than leave him in the above heaven sect. As for Elder Chan, his cultivation level was ordinary. Although he could occasionally produce miraculous effects in the ancestral world, it was useless against sequence experts. However, it was different if he went all out. One of the 3 young ancestral Qi was Patriarch Tianyi. Once he went all out, the strength he could produce was absolutely inestimable. It was enough to shock any enemy. Apart from them, Lu Yin only needed to wait for news from Jiang Qin. With Jiang Qin and Jiang Qingyue as the Lightning Lord's children, they should have some means to protect themselves. Before leaving, Lu Yin decided to make a trip to the Ice Spirit region to bid farewell to Yen. Throughout his decades of cultivation, Yen'er had not spent much time with him, but she had represented his ignorant youth. Lu Yin had interacted with many women in his life, but the one who had truly caused him heartache, the one who he cared about and the one who he would never be able to give up was Yen'er. Soon Lu Yin tore through the void and arrived at the Ice Spirit region. The Ice Master knew that Lu Yin had arrived and hurriedly came out to welcome him. Lu Yin was led to Bing Exen by the Ice Master, where he stared at her in a daze. The Ice Master did not disturb him and left. Lu Yin stared at Bing Exen with a complicated gaze. How many people in a person's life could accompany them for the rest of their lives? No matter if they were poor, rich, old, sick or dead, there would always be someone to accompany them when they were at their loneliest. There would always be a smiling face that they wanted to see the most when they missed them. The comfort of waking up from nightmares, the warm porridge that came when one was hungry, the occasional drink, the occasional dance, and the only person in their eyes was himself. That was enough. Lu Yin did not want much. He had always pursued the most ordinary life. The Lu family's return, the human race's peace, his wife's company and his children's flock. These simple wishes had always been difficult to realize. It was as if these were the rules of the universe. The stronger one was, the less they could protect the things they cared about. Lu Yin stood in front of Bing Exen and stared blankly. 3 days passed in a flash. On the 4th day, a beautiful figure walked over and interrupted Lu Yin's daze. "Brother Lu, you will meet your wife one day." Jiang Qingyue's voice rang out. She had been cultivating in the Ice Spirit region all this time. Lu Yin exhaled and adjusted his state of mind. He looked back and asked, "Are you ready? Let's go outside together?" Jiang Qingyue replied, "Jiang Qin can't go." Lu Yin was surprised. "Why?" Master said that he spends most of his time wandering through parallel spacetimes, so going outside is like traveling. That's why he's not allowed to go. He's staying by his side to cultivate, Jiang Qingyue said. Lu Yin did not know if it was just his imagination, but he could hear that she was taking pleasure in his misfortune. "Your master? Kong Tianzhao?" "Yes." "Then what about you?" The ancestral tortoise climbed up from behind Jiang Qingyue and shouted proudly, "Of course our young master will go. Do you welcome him?" Jiang Qingyue frowned. "He wants to be confined again?" The ancestral tortoise immediately shrank back. "I'm sorry, young master." Lu Yin was amused. "He didn't go with you last time because he was confined?" Jiang Qingyue said indifferently, "Master said that he's become arrogant." Lu Yin looked at Jiang Qingyue. "You'll go outside with me?" Jiang Qingyue hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I rarely go to other parallel spacetimes outside of the 6th mainland. Master wants me to travel more often." Lu Yin nodded. "Since the candidates have been decided, let's go." "Right, I want to leave something for the Ice Spirit before I leave." Lu Yin found the Ice Master and asked for a few extreme ice stones. The Ice Master was excited. She knew that Lu Yin could upgrade external items, so she naturally wanted to upgrade them. Even if they couldn't reach Bing Xian's level, they could still become her delicacies and make up for the loss of the frozen corpse. A day later, Lu Yin handed 4 extreme ice stones to the Ice Master. The Ice Master's breathing quickened as he looked at the 4 floating stones. "Master Lu, why are there so many?" Lu Yin replied, "I don't want anything to happen to Bing Exen." The Ice Master replied, "I understand, but to upgrade it by so much, what's the price?" "I know what I'm doing." Upgrading 4 extreme ice stones had cost a total of 20 trillion star essence, which was quite a hefty price to pay. However, compared to Yen'er, Lu Yin was more than willing to pay. He would rather lose more resources than have anything happen to Bing Xian. Although these 4 extreme ice stones couldn't reach Bing Xian's level, they could still become delicacies for her. It wasn't that he didn't want to upgrade it to Bing Xian's level, but even if he did, he couldn't control the reaction of the Bing Xian beneath the Ice Spirit domain. He also didn't know what the Ice Master's attitude would be when faced with the temptation of Bing Xian. Lu Yin never underestimated human nature. There were good people and evil people, and it was the same for other life forms. Besides, he didn't know how many resources he would need to upgrade to Bing Xian's level or how many times he would have to upgrade it. If he spent too much, it would be useless to him and that would be a waste. This was enough for now. In the back mountains of the Above the Sky sect, Elder Chan Jiang Qingyue and a confused Zhao Ran stood beside Lu Yin. The ghost monkey was in his shadow, and the dragon turtle was perched on Jiang Qingyue's shoulder while the hellworm was perched on Lu Yin's shoulder. This was everyone who had set out for this trip. Before this, Lu Yin had announced that his seclusion had yet to end, but he didn't know how long it would continue for. Everyone, this trip to the Outlands might be dangerous or it might just be a trip. I don't know how long it will take, but thank you for accompanying me on this trip, Lu Yin said slowly as he gripped the compass with a solemn expression. The ghost monkey was excited. To be able to accompany Seventh Bro, I won't be afraid even if I have to climb a mountain of blades or enter a sea of flames. Seventh Bro, this little monkey is willing to serve you to the death. Elder Chan was speechless as the monkey's frenzied flattery of Lu Yin had reached an abnormal level. On Jiang Qingyue's shoulder, the dragon turtle snorted disdainfully. Who's doubting me? Lu Yin raised his hand and gripped the compass. He stared at the needle as he slowly tore through the void. From start to finish, the needle hadn't moved at all. The hellworm landed on his shoulder and its body grew to just the right size to carry everyone. It then leapt into the void and began its journey to the Outlands. The trip to the Outlands seemed far away, but it wasn't actually that far away. They could return at any time, but the time was uncertain. In particular, they might run into the Everlasting Tribe and those powerhouses from the Outlands who were hostile to the humans. These were the biggest uncertainties, and Lu Yin was looking forward to meeting them. The hellworm carried the group and charged into the void crack, arriving at a parallel spacetime. This parallel spacetime was very ordinary, but the astral storms were extremely severe and swept through the entire region. Lu Yin looked at the compass and had the hellworm follow the needle's guidance. The hellworm's body grew larger as it traversed the storms and quickly found the direction the needle was pointing. This was an asteroid belt with strange beasts entrenched in the distance, but there was no need to pay them any attention. Lu Yin gripped the compass, and its surface emitted a faint light that quickly spread through the void. Qingyue, can you see the light? Lu Yin asked. Jiang Qingyue shook her head. Lu Yin then asked Elder Chan. Elder Chan couldn't see it either. Lu Yin sighed. It seemed that only those who could see the sequence particles would be able to see this light, which meant that only powerhouses with sequence laws could use this compass. Let's go. Lu Yin growled and the compass pulled the hellworm towards the light. This wasn't teleportation through the Outlands, but rather more like continuous shuttling through parallel spacetime. Parallel spacetime flashed before their eyes, and they soon landed in a new parallel spacetime. There was no need for shuttling as they naturally appeared in a new parallel spacetime. Chapter 2997. Lu Yin suddenly thought of something and his eyes widened as he looked at the space. Sure enough, the lines in this spacetime were 3 times tougher than the primordial space, which meant that this spacetime flowed 3 times faster than the primordial space. This was a parallel spacetime with a different time flow. From start to finish, Elder Chan, Jiang Qingyue and the others were confused. Lu Yin had no intention of explaining and he only told them what he needed to find. This spacetime flows 3 times faster, so I need to cultivate for a while. You can stay on the caged WRM's back or cultivate freely in this spacetime, Lu Yin instructed. This was something they had discussed before they had left. At this moment, Zhao Ran showed her usefulness, and she immediately brewed tea for Elder Chan. Elder Chan was very pleased. He had been worried about the 5th mainland ever since the cosmic tree realm had split apart and Lu Yin's rise. Today he had only shown his face in the above heaven and acted as a hired thug. He had not done anything else, and he had only accompanied Lu Yin because of Lu Yin's invitation. Just as he had made a grand wish when he had broken through to progenitor realm, he was willing to pave the way for Lu Yin and dedicate his life to him. Jiang Qingyue left the caged WM and brought the dragon tortoise to roam this spacetime. The monkey was also chased away by Lu Yin, and he either stayed on the caged WM's back or roamed around. Lu Yin's goal was to be recognized by this spacetime, and he wanted to see this spacetime clearly. If it took too long to be recognized, then there was no need to do so. After all, 3 times the speed was too little. A few days later, the group gathered on the caged WRM's back again. Lu Yin held the compass and tore through the void to leave. There were no living beings in this spacetime and it would take a long time to be recognized. 3 seconds was not worth it, so Lu Yin continued to search for the next spacetime. The same scene appeared again. The caged WM entered a spatial tear and then followed the needle to find the right direction. It was then dragged by the compass and followed the light through the void to arrive at a parallel spacetime with a different time flow. This spacetime flowed 12 times faster, and Lu Yin estimated that it would take him at most 5 years to be recognized. It was worth it. He stayed in this spacetime, and Jiang Qingyue could be considered to have officially stepped into the outer realm to begin her cultivation. 5 years later, Lu Yin returned to the caged WRM's back. Jiang Qingyue had also returned and she looked at Lu Yin curiously. Lu Yin had not told them what to do with finding a parallel spacetime flow, and how to determine that he would stay here for 5 years. Your Highness, please have some tea. Zhao Ran was very happy. Coming to a strange parallel universe, she could pick different flowers and develop different teas, which made her very happy. Lu Yin looked at the magma-like tea flowing within the teacup in front of him. Seemed like Zhao Ran had broken through. He took a sip. It was spicy in the mouth but sweet in the aftertaste. It was a strange combination of flavors that made him feel refreshed. Comfortable. Zhao Ran was elated. Really? I'll go pick some more red fruits. What red fruit? Lu Yin asked curiously. Elder Chan smiled and said, "This is the name that Zhao Ran gave to a type of fruit. The tea that the Daoist master drinks is mainly developed from this type of fruit. It's very delicious." Lu Yin nodded, but he didn't pay much attention to the matter. He watched as the ghost monkey brought Zhao Ran to the planet to harvest the fruits. Half a day later, Zhao Ran returned. Lu Yin held the compass in his hand and began the next parallel space-time. After a year in the primordial space, Lu Yin received the recognition of a parallel universe with a different flow of time. This parallel universe had 17 times the normal flow of time, which meant that they had been in this parallel universe for 17 years. 17 years had caused Zhao Ran to develop feelings for this parallel universe. Jiang Qingyue was very familiar with this parallel universe. She knew where the delicious fruits and vegetables were, where the strange mountains were, where the most beautiful scenery was, and so on. Lu Yin had obtained the recognition of this parallel universe by traveling through space. This was because there were no animals in this universe, only plants. He had touched every single one of them and seen every single one of them clearly. This could be considered a sightseeing tour. During this time he had traveled with Jiang Qingyue for nearly 3 years. If not for the dragon turtle's arrival, Jiang Qingyue would not have left by herself. Lu Yin felt rather awkward. This dragon turtle was too talkative and it was even worse than the ghost monkey. The monkey wanted to accompany Lu Yin to travel through the mountains and rivers, but Lu Yin found it annoying. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed in the primordial space, while Lu Yin and the others had spent nearly 100 years in a parallel universe with a different flow of time. They had not encountered any danger during this time, and the only time they had encountered a beast was when Zhao Ran had encountered it. It had only been an explorer realm beast, but it had been sent flying by a single slap from the ghost monkey. After nearly 100 years of peace, Lu Yin felt much more relaxed. Elder Chan liked this kind of time. The calmer it was, the more comfortable it was. Zhao Ran had invented more than 20 types of tea, and although they all looked strange, they were all very tasty. If a person's entire life passed like this, it would be something that many people dreamed of. Young master, it's been so long but you haven't improved at all. Atop the caged WRM's back, everyone was sipping tea as they looked at the distant waterfall. Jiang Qingyue remained calm. That's how cultivation is. Fighting all year round doesn't mean that I can improve. Elder Chan agreed. Increasing one's cultivation isn't just about one's battle prowess and realm. The cultivation of one's mental state is also very important. Relax once in a while and you'll know the benefits when you break through to progenitor realm. The dragon turtle waved its short tail. I'm talking about the emotional aspect. Elder Chan paused, coughed and looked away. Jiang Qingyue raised her brows. I want to send you back to White Cloud City. The dragon turtle immediately retracted its head. It's been so many years but you haven't improved at all. That Dao Lord Lu is also a blockhead. Zai. Who's slandering 7th bro? Come out, I want to fight you to the death. The ghost monkey emerged from the shadow and stared at the dragon turtle as it cursed. The dragon turtle rolled its eyes. You're so noisy, stupid monkey. Stupid turtle, come out, I want to fight you to the death. I'll whip you to death with my tail. You have a tail? Where is it? Why don't I see it? Aren't those horns? Stupid monkey, you're asking for a beating. Stupid turtle, how dare you scold seventh bro? I'll make soup out of you. I don't object, Jiang Qingyue said. The dragon turtle was sad. Young master, I'm doing this for your own good. Lu Yin stared into the distance. 3 years had passed in the inception space, but almost 100 years had passed here. Time really could change things. Brother Lu, how long will this trip last? Jiang Qingyue asked. When she spoke, the dragon turtle and the ghost monkey stopped arguing. Elder Chan also looked over. Lu Yin said, I don't know. Let's continue. It's unlikely that we'll be able to return anytime soon. As he spoke, his heart skipped a beat. What's wrong? Jiang Qingyue shook her head. Nothing. The ghost monkey came over. Seventh bro, I'm old. Stupid monkey, don't insult the young master. The dragon turtle jumped up. The ghost monkey rolled its eyes. Old? Is there anything wrong with being a human? The dragon turtle was stunned for a moment, then shook its head vigorously. That's right, I don't object. Young master, you're old. Jiang Qingyue's expression turned ugly. These two kept saying that she was old. As a cultivator, even if she was 1,000 or 10,000 years old, it was still not considered old. Lu Yin casually tossed the two creatures away. Only then did they calm down. Traveling through parallel universes can be dangerous. Jiang Qin should know that we're safe now, but that doesn't mean we'll be safe in the future. Especially since we're looking for parallel universes with different flow rates. It's said that these parallel universes are resources that the experts of the outer realms like to trade. If we continue searching, we'll definitely encounter powerful creatures from the outer realms. Jiang Qingyue thought for a moment. Father said that the star toad likes parallel universes with different flow rates the most. If we encounter it, we won't even be able to escape. Lu Yin laughed. It's not that bad. Plus, the star toad likes to do business. Without enough enticement, it won't do anything to us. Jiang Qingyue smiled. I'm actually hoping to encounter it. Lu Yin smiled. Old Zen sighed. When he was their age, he couldn't even encounter ancestor realm experts, let alone a creature like the star toad. At that time, the starry sky tree had already split apart. The last expert he encountered was Lu Tianyi. Madman Lu didn't count. Times have really changed. It's good to be young. After nearly 100 years, Lu Yin's flowing light could see the time in the past extended to 165 seconds. The more time he could see, the more he felt that flowing light's true purpose wasn't to look back. It had to have some other use. However, there wasn't enough time. Lu Yin couldn't be sure. He needed to increase the time he could rewind. The hellworm landed and Lu Yin and the others arrived at a new parallel universe with different flow rates. As soon as they arrived, Lu Yin and the others were shocked by the scene in front of them. In front of them, continents were stacked on top of each other, forming a pagoda-like space. From bottom to top, the continents became smaller and smaller. Since they were too far away, they could see clearly. Lu Yin was surprised as this was his first time seeing such a space-time. There were no planets, only continents, and the continents were all stacked together. It looked like the lower, middle, and top realms of the starry sky tree. This space-time wasn't very large, and Lu Yin could see through it with his celestial eye. At the same time, he could clearly see the spatial lines in this space-time. They were actually 80 times tougher than the Genesis space. Lu Yin's breathing quickened. 80 times. This was a parallel universe with 80 times the flow of time. Outside of the 5 spirit tribes, this was the first time he had encountered such a large flow of time. He had found a treasure. He looked at the 7 continents and his expression gradually sank. There were humans living in this space-time. In the past 3 years, Lu Yin hadn't found any humans living in any of the parallel universes he had visited. There were many parallel universes in the universe, and the probability of encountering one with humans wasn't high. Furthermore, Lu Yin had specifically chosen parallel universes with different flows of time, so the probability was even lower. But now he had encountered one. However, the people in this space-time didn't live well. Everyone retract your auras. Shrink the hellworm and land on the continent, Lu Yin ordered with an ugly expression. Elder Chan knew that something in this space-time had angered Lu Yin, and his expression turned solemn. Jiang Qingyue looked into the distance. Although she didn't have the celestial eye and couldn't see that far, she had cultivated sure, and the 7 continents in the distance gave her a very bad feeling. Chapter 2998. Not long after, the caged worm reached the bottom of the continent. There was a dim light above the continent and there were cities and villages on the surface. It seemed normal, but as the caged worm streaked past, Elder Chan Jiang Qingyue and the others' expressions turned ugly. Even the ghost monkey and the dragon turtle fell silent. This continent was not land at all. It was hell. The people on the continent were not living. They were fleeing for their lives. They were being hunted down by creatures that resembled mantises. Some were strong and some were weak. The stronger ones destroyed cities while the weaker ones destroyed villages. Lu Yin and the rest had personally witnessed these mantises chasing after the humans as if they were playing. They would only kill the last person to escape and they would only kill one person at a time. The people in front could escape to their heart's content, and as long as they were not the last person they would not die. This was no longer a massacre. It was a game, a survival game that targeted humans. Humans could also resist and some could even kill the mantises. However, after killing one, stronger mantises would quickly appear and continue this killing game. Lu Yin and the rest could clearly see that there was a large group of mantises not far from where the humans were gathered. They were excited to see their own kind being killed by the humans, and then they would go up and slaughter the humans themselves. Whether they were killed or killed, they were very excited. These were disgusting beasts. Jiang Qingyue's gaze turned cold and she could not help but kill a group of mantises. However, there were simply too many of them and it was impossible to count. The people below had no idea that there were so many praying mantises waiting to play this game. Killing a praying mantis gave them hope, but it was just the beginning of a desperate feast. This was a truly desperate killing game and it was impossible for these people to win. Lu Yin had the caged worm head towards the 6th continent, which was the same. The only difference was that there were fewer mantises and the humans were not as desperate. However, the killing game continued and people were constantly being slaughtered. The 5th, 4th and 3rd continents were the same. It was only when they reached the 2nd continent that the killing game stopped. Lu Yin and the rest understood that from the bottom to the top, everyone was facing a killing game. They could resist and kill the mantises, but there was another option which was to head towards the upper continent. As long as they reached the upper continent, their survival situation would be better. The people who could come up from the lower continents were not weak, and they had the ability to resist the mantises. Once someone reached the 2nd continent, they would no longer have to go through this killing game. The 2nd continent would be the end of the game. This feeling was similar to raising venomous insects. It was as if these mantises were specifically selecting the strongest among humans. The 2nd piece of land was like heaven, completely different from the land below. As for those who lived on the 2nd continent, they wanted to go to the top continent. It was said that the top continent had delicacies, fine wine, and beauties that they would never be able to enjoy. It was a place that attracted everyone. They had been freed from the killing game, but they were still not satisfied. They still wanted to pursue higher material things. The climbing of the continents had become a curse, causing them to habitually climb to the top. Lu Yin and the rest also saw the top continent where the true game would begin. There was a progenitor realm mantis there, and anyone who could reach the top continent would have to participate in its game of slaughter. There was no chance of survival as the difference between a progenitor and other cultivators was just too great. This was a game from death to life and then from life to death. It was a game from hell to heaven and then from heaven to hell. This was the cruelest game. It gave people hope and pushed them into despair. This was a game that tested one's humanity. They could live on the 2nd continent and live a good life, but these people were not satisfied and wanted to climb to the top. No one had ever come down to the top continent, but to those on the 2nd continent, there was something there that they could not enjoy. Otherwise, why would no one come down? This thought became the goal of most of the people on the 7 continents, and it also became their motivation to continue climbing. 7-star mantis, Jiang Qingyue said with a serious expression as she sat on the back of the hellworm. Lu Yin and Elder Chan had never heard of it before. 7-star mantis? Qingyue, have you seen these mantises before? Jiang Qingyue said in a low voice. 7-star mantis is a powerhouse from the outer realm. It enjoys controlling the desires of living things. Be it humans, giant beasts, or even plants, as long as they have thoughts and desires, they can become its entertainment. It is also a helper of the Eternals. Lu Yin frowned. He had not seen any mantises among the group of powerhouses that had arrived in the zone of E before. How strong is the seven-star mantis? Elder Chan asked. The dragon turtle was unusually serious. It's very powerful. Although White Cloud City has never fought with it, a few powerhouses from the outer realm have died at its hands. It's best at using its arm blades and is extremely fast. Master said that the seven-star mantis speed is comparable to that of time. Lu Yin's heart sank. Time was time again. Ever since he had come into contact with sequence law powerhouses, time and space were no longer mysterious. Any powerhouse could come into contact with them. However, this did not mean that the powers of time and space were weak. On the contrary, it was precisely because of their strength that the sequence law powerhouses valued them and cultivated them. The undying god had escaped several times by skipping through time. Now the seven-star mantis had the speed of time, but Lu Yin did not know how fast it was. Jiang Qingyue looked at the top continent. Father wanted to get rid of the seven-star mantis a long time ago, but because he did not declare war on the Eternals and did not have the confidence to finish it off immediately, he delayed it until now. This monster is very agile and it will not fight against a powerhouse like Father. It will not be easy to kill it. Father is also afraid of forcing it to completely side with the Eternals. Lu Yin was surprised. The seven-star mantis has not completely sided with the Eternals? Jiang Qingyue nodded. It has helped the Eternals before, but it is different from awakening hibernation. It helped the Eternals because it lost a bet. The bet was based on human desires. It likes to control desires. The higher its intelligence, the greater its desires. Thus, it likes to control the desires of humans the most. The Eternals are also humans in its eyes, but what desires can a corpse king have? Besides, compared to the seven-star mantis, the Eternals understand humans far better. It has lost several bets, but it has only helped the Eternals a few times. In the eyes of White Cloud City, it is the Eternals' foreign helper. The dragon turtle sighed. We cannot make it join our side at the cost of toying with the desires of humans. It controls desires and loves to kill. Old Master wanted to get rid of such a monster, not rope it in. It is impossible to rope it in. Lu Yin looked at the seven continents. Did it like to control human desires? This must be the origin of the seven continents in front of him. The lower continents saw through human life and death, while the upper continents were the true test. The worst outcome of human desires would always be death. This was the most despairing outcome. Beasts were beasts. If humans did not have desires, how could they have feelings? How could they have the motivation to continue developing? Desires did not mean that they were wrong. Survival was the instinct of all living things. It likes to test life and death and toy with desires. I want to see how petty it will be when it faces death, Lu Yin muttered to himself. Although his voice was soft, his words were extremely cold. The dragon turtle was startled. You're not thinking of fighting it, are you? It's best if you don't. Old Master said that its speed can rival that of time, and that is definitely not an exaggeration. Even if it is not a sequence law powerhouse, it is definitely not inferior to any sequence law powerhouse. Elder Chan was shocked. It's not a sequence law powerhouse? Jiang Qingyue said, no. That's why it is especially afraid of meeting Father. It doesn't care if there is any hostility. As long as a sequence law powerhouse appears, it will run. Speaking of which, no one knows where its nest is. I didn't expect it to be here. It's better to tell Old Master and ask him to take action, the dragon turtle said. Jiang Qingyue frowned. Father is dealing with the primordial thunder locusts. I don't know when he will be free. It might take a long time. Since it's not a sequence law powerhouse, there's nothing to be afraid of. If it's fast, then let's find a grave for it, Lu Yin said ruthlessly. Everything that he had seen on the seven continents had stirred his killing intent. It did not matter if this seven-star mantis was an ally of the Eternals. Even if it was an ally of the Six Direction Association, it still had to die. Hearing Lu Yin's words, Jiang Qingyue knew that she could not stop him from taking action. Furthermore, she had no intention of stopping him. Anyone who saw such a scene would be tempted to kill. Now the question was what to do. The hellworm circled around again. The seven-star mantis is not here. Otherwise, the hellworm would have been discovered the moment it approached, Jiang Qingyue said with certainty. The group discussed for a while and decided to set up according to the seven-star mantis habits. First of all, the battlefield could not be here. Otherwise, everyone on the seven continents would die. Lu Yin instructed Ghost Monkey to spread rumors on the 7 continents that a parallel spacetime had been discovered and that there were many people inside. This would attract the 7-star mantis and Jiang Qingyue to that spacetime. Their mission was to find the nearest parallel spacetime and set up a trap for the 7-star mantis. At the same time, they would also bring a group of people to that spacetime. Rumors cannot be spread too quickly. I believe that there are definitely people on the 2nd continent who have seen the truth and have not thought of going to the top continent. These people will definitely be watched by the 7-star mantis. It would be best if they spread the rumors to the 7-star mantis. Don't worry about wasting time. This spacetime flows 80 times faster, so we have plenty of time, Lu Yin advised. Jiang Qingyue said, "We don't know when the 7-star mantis will return. We won't be too anxious. 7th bro, you have to keep an eye on the little monkey at all times." "The little monkey doesn't want to die," Ghost Monkey wailed. It was now right under the 7-star mantis's nose. The moment that monster swung its arm blade, it would die. The dragon tortoise sneered, "Coward." Ghost Monkey immediately jumped up. "You damn tortoise. Your tortoise shell is so hard that even the mantis won't be able to cut through it. How can I be the same? You're the coward, the coward." "That's the ancestral tortoise, not the dragon tortoise," the dragon tortoise angrily retorted. Jiang Qingyue scolded, "Shut up and let's go." The dragon tortoise glared at Ghost Monkey and then headed towards the 2nd continent with Jiang Qingyue. Chapter 2999. The monkey also wanted to go to the 2nd continent as it felt that it was the safest. However, Lu Yin had threatened it, saying that while the 2nd continent was safe, it would definitely be watched by the 7-star mantises. Only then did the monkey fearfully head to the 3rd continent. Lu Yin and Elder Chan split up to search for parallel spacetime. This was not easy, as one needed to travel through parallel spacetime, and the people on the 7 continents should not be able to find it. They had to arrange this properly. 5 years quickly passed in the current spacetime. At the top of the 7 continents, the killing game continued. A large mantis brandished its blade, and a face twisted in fear appeared in front of it. The face could not even utter a single word before it was chopped into pieces. The mantis brandished its blade and clashed with it, causing a metallic sound to ring out as it scanned the area with its narrow eyes. There were mantises everywhere, and in the distance, there was another mantis that exuded a terrifying pressure. It was the progenitor mantis that Lu Yin and the rest had seen. There was only one progenitor mantis in the entire spacetime, and above it was the 7-star mantis that had yet to return. There were dozens of people surrounded by mantises, and they were tightly huddled together as they stared at their surroundings. An aura of despair enveloped them, and some of them were missing limbs. Fresh blood flowed down the center of the crowd, causing the mantis's eyes to turn red. So it's true. This is the land of death. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come. I should have listened to those people. Bastards, you're all a bunch of bastards. If you want to kill us, we'll kill you too. Come on, come on. Frenzied roars were accompanied by despairing howls and struggles before death, which excited the mantises even more. They loved to watch humans wail before they died, and they could never get enough of this scene. The furthest progenitor mantis excitedly raised its blade and swung it down, slicing through the void. Along the way, many mantises were split in two, and it eventually slashed towards those people. Those people were killed before they could even react. To the mantises, killing their own kind was also a form of entertainment. The progenitor mantis jumped around excitedly, its blade incomparably sharp and reflecting its sinister and terrifying face. The top continent was covered in blood, and the stench of blood filled the air. Under this blade, only a few of those people survived. They were all trembling in fear. A group of giant mantises surrounded them, their shadows covering them. They looked up and saw pairs of blood-stained blades and ferocious faces with sharp fangs. Someone immediately went crazy and let out a wild laugh. His head was pierced from head to toe by the blade. No, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. I can live, please don't kill me, don't kill me. Someone begged. Several blades fell, cutting him into pieces. Everyone stared at the last person. His eyes were lifeless and his pupils were flickering. Apart from the numerous praying mantises, the blood-stained blade and the corpses on the ground. The blood had gathered into a river and rushed straight to his head. Mantis did not make a move, but the blade was getting closer and closer. This was a kind of enjoyment, the ultimate enjoyment. In every game, the last person would bring them the ultimate enjoyment because the last person was the most fearful. The more fearful they were, the more they didn't know what they would do. This kind of unknown and desperate struggle for survival was what they looked forward to the most. This person's legs had long since gone soft. He sat on the ground paralyzed, unable to stand up no matter how hard he tried. His entire body lay on the ground trembling, muttering something to himself. The surroundings were filled with strange laughter. The mantis' laughter was like a nightmare. When he climbed up from the lower continent to the second continent, he had heard it too many times. Every time it would wake him up from the dream. He originally thought that he could escape when he reached the second continent, but what he faced was an even crueler game. Why was it like this? Why was it like this? If he had known, he would have listened to those people. There was clearly a place to escape. He didn't want to stay here anymore. He wanted to live. I can escape, I can escape. His voice kept ringing out. This person had also gone crazy. A praying mantis raised its blade and was about to strike down. The next game would soon begin. Suddenly, the sharp blade swept across, cutting off all the praying mantises around. It was that progenitor realm praying mantis. The progenitor realm praying mantis's huge shadow shrouded the last person who had gone crazy. It slowly approached him, its triangular head close to that person, listening. I can escape. Some parallel universes are filled with humans. They said that they can take us away. I can escape. I should escape. I am going to escape. The progenitor realm praying mantis raised its body and stepped forward. With a bang, its body pressed the person into a pool of blood. Its cold eyes stared at the second continent. Parallel universes? Humans? Too interesting. Another 10 years passed. In these 10 years, the 7 continents didn't seem to have changed much on the surface, but there was an additional voice inside. This voice was getting louder and louder, so loud that it changed many people's minds. Go to the parallel universes. There were humans there. They could escape these monsters. They could live. The top continent was hell. Only by escaping to the parallel universes could they live. It was unknown when it started. It was about 10 years ago, but this voice had grown uncontrollably. It developed at a speed that even Jiang Qingyue and Ghost Monkey did not expect. It was as if there was a pushing force that kept increasing. Lu Yin sat on the prison drake's back and looked at the top continent. That praying mantis wants to change games. Elder Chan said, it already knows that there are people from the parallel universes coming to save these people. It didn't stop them. Instead, it pushed them. It's as if it wants to treat this parallel universe as a second top continent. You will get tired of a game after playing it for a long time. It knows how to play. It is also very confident. It is not worried about whether there are strong people in the parallel universes. Though it is worried. Lu Yin's eyes flickered. It is precisely because it is worried that although it allowed these people to go to the parallel universes, it did not investigate it. It is waiting. Waiting for the 7-star praying mantis to return. This is the safest way. This changed game is a gift to the 7-star praying mantis. It is safe and stable. This is what it wants. Lu Yin and the others had been in this spacetime for 15 years. They had waited for 15 years and they still had to continue waiting. He did not plan to leave until he dealt with the 7-star praying mantis. The Eternals tried their best to rope in various helpers. He also had to think of a way to eliminate those helpers one by one. Jingzhe was not the last and the 7-star praying mantis was not the last. Finally, when it was the 30th year, a feeling of palpitations appeared. Lu Yin was especially afraid when he looked at the top continent. He knew that the 7-star praying mantis had returned. Ask Qingyue and Ghost Monkey to come back. The trap has been set. We are just waiting for them to take the bait. Lu Yin said as he headed in a certain direction. That was the parallel spacetime that they had discovered. There were people in the parallel universes that Lu Yin had brought over from the 7 continents over the years. The praying mantis could not tell who was who. They could not even distinguish between corpse kings and normal people. They could not tell the difference. Although the progenitor realm praying mantis had not come to the parallel universe, it had sent ordinary praying mantises over. It was certain that there were humans in this parallel universe. Lu Yin and the others returned to the parallel universe and waited for another 3 years. During these 3 years, praying mantises constantly entered to investigate. The people in the parallel universe had been taught by Lu Yin and the others, and their strength was far superior to the people on the 7 continents. This allowed the praying mantises to confirm that this universe was different from the one they were in. When it was the 35th year, the progenitor realm praying mantis entered the parallel universe. Jiang Qingyue walked out. Its opponent is me. This was something that had been decided long ago. Lu Yin had first seen Jiang Qingyue in the 6th mainland. At that time she was only an emissary. However, as time passed, Jiang Qin and Jiang Qingyue broke through to the half-step ancestor realm. She cultivated in the Ice Spirit clan, where time flowed 100 times faster. Lu Yin did not know how long she had cultivated and he did not ask. After all, it was not convenient to ask about her age. However, it should not have been a short time since she had broken through to the half-step ancestor realm. Half-step ancestor was a classification of the origin space. In White Cloud City, Lu Yin did not know what a half-step ancestor was, but he was curious about Jiang Qingyue's strength. This was her first official battle after accompanying Lu Yin, and her identity was the master of this parallel universe. The progenitor realm praying mantis was bewildered as it looked at Jiang Qingyue. He was not an extreme powerhouse. Human, who are you? Jiang Qingyue's gaze was cold as she raised her sword and pointed it at the praying mantis. Get out. The praying mantis tilted its triangular head. Are you the strongest person in this universe? I'll say it again. Get out. Jiang Qingyue deliberately acted tough. This was what Lu Yin had taught her, but she did not express it at all and remained as cold as ever. The progenitor realm praying mantis moved, slashing its blade from top to bottom and tearing through the void. It had been ordered by the 7-star praying mantis to test this universe. Jiang Qingyue attacked at the same time, but no sword shadow could be seen on her snow-white sword. All that could be seen were the cracks caused by the collision. The blade collided with the sword and Jiang Qingyue retreated. The progenitor realm praying mantis's narrow eyes flashed with a cold glint, and it spread its wings on its back. Its speed suddenly increased as it swung its blade at Jiang Qingyue. Lu Yin frowned. If not for the dragon turtle hiding in Jiang Qingyue's sleeve, he would not have been able to resist taking action. It was not easy for a half-step ancestor to fight an ancestor. He could do it, and so could senior brother Qingping. Even senior brother Mu Xia and senior brother Mu Carving could do it, but that did not mean that it was easy. On the contrary, this was Mr. Mu's standard for selecting a disciple. Even now, Lu Yin could barely see through Mr. Mu's realm, which was definitely on the same level as a Grand Empyrean and even higher than the Thunder Lord. Although Jiang Qingyue was the Thunder Lord's daughter, that did not mean that she could definitely do it. The pressure from the blades swinging forced Jiang Qingyue back, but there was no fear on her face. Instead, it was the same tenacity and fearlessness that Lu Yin had seen her for the first time. The blackish-purple substance continued to spread, giving Jiang Qingyue the strength to resist the praying mantis's blade. White Cloud City had never fought the 7-star praying mantis before, let alone this progenitor realm praying mantis. He had no idea what the blackish-purple substance was, and he only knew that Jiang Qingyue's sword had suddenly become powerful. The heavens were constantly being slashed apart. Jiang Qingyue was barely able to resist the progenitor realm praying mantis's blade, but as time passed she would definitely be defeated unless she had some other strength. A half-step ancestor from the primordial space had an inner world, so what did Jiang Qingyue have? The outcome of this battle was far from being decided. Chapter 3000. Not long after Jiang Qingyue escaped. This was the plan. If she didn't escape, how could she lure the 7-star mantis over? The progenitor realm mantis chased after her. It was very fast, but Jiang Qingyue wasn't slow either, especially with the help of the dragon turtle. The progenitor realm mantis couldn't catch up at all and finally gave up. It circled the entire spacetime. Other than Jiang Qingyue, no one could fight it. After a few days, it was certain that there were no powerhouses in this spacetime. Only then did it return to its original spacetime in satisfaction. The next one to come should be the 7-star mantis. Jiang Qingyue returned, panting heavily. Lu Yin looked at her. How was it? Jiang Qingyue gripped the hilt of her sword tightly. I'll deal with it. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. The progenitor realm mantis' strength was singular. Although it had the destructive power of a progenitor, it was not as strong as the powerhouses in the primordial space who had experienced the origin tribulation to break through to the progenitor realm and had an ancestral world. However, it was not something a half-ancestor could easily defeat. It was good that Jiang Qingyue still had a trump card. The next battle won't be long, Lu Yin muttered to himself. Half a month later, the progenitor realm mantis came again. It seemed to be looking for Jiang Qingyue, but it didn't find her, so it returned. Then a month later it came again. It came again and again until Lu Yin and the others were almost numb. It wasn't until half a year later that Lu Yin felt his heart palpitate again. This feeling only appeared when facing a threat. He opened his heavenly eye and looked into the distance. He saw a huge mantis appear in the starry sky. It looked similar to the progenitor realm mantis, but it was more than 10 times larger and exuded an oppressive aura. It's here. Lu Yin's expression was solemn. The Hell WRM's claws curved, not wanting to move. It also felt threatened. Although it was not a sequence law powerhouse, the 7-star mantis was valued by the Eternals and made the Lightning Lord find it troublesome. Must be extraordinary. The 7-star mantis stared ahead with its triangular head. Behind it, the progenitor realm mantis appeared and was clearly communicating. However, Lu Yin and the others were too far away and couldn't hear it. Even if they could, they might not understand. Jiang Qingyue revealed her aura. The 7-star mantis suddenly looked over. The progenitor realm mantis also sensed it. It spread its wings and shuttled through the void. Jiang Qingyue stepped forward and slashed out with her sword. The ancestor realm mantis let out a strange laugh. Its long and narrow eyes stared at Jiang Qingyue with a chilling glare. Its arm blade slashed down and with a bang Jiang Qingyue was cut down. The ancestor realm mantis sped down even faster. Lu Yin stared at the mantis, but it didn't seem to have any intention of approaching. Its eyes were fixed on Jiang Qingyue the entire time. Many experts were extremely cautious. If they weren't cautious, they wouldn't have survived until now. Old Monster Mo was like that, and so was this 7-star mantis. Lu Yin was able to see through the lines in space and he moved to attack. The 7-star mantis had been staring at Jiang Qingyue, who was fighting with the progenitor realm mantis. Suddenly, his head tilted to the side and Lu Yin appeared. He had disguised his appearance to prevent the 7-star mantis from recognizing him. His strength had yet to reach the progenitor realm, so he could not pose a fatal threat to the 7-star mantis. Thus, the 7-star mantis would not immediately leave. The result was just as he had guessed. Even though the 7-star mantis was cautious, it wouldn't flee upon encountering a half-martial ancestor. Lu Yin gripped his sword and slashed out with the 12th sword. The sword slashed straight at the 7-star mantis, but the mantis casually waved its arm blade and sliced through the sword. It then spread its wings and instantly appeared in front of Lu Yin. It raised its arm blade high and slashed down. 7-star mantis. The 7-star mantis was enormous, and the pressure it exerted was immense. When its blade fell, a cold glint flickered and even Lu Yin became serious. A dark purple substance spread out and the sword slashed upwards. There was a loud bang and Lu Yin continuously retreated in shock. The 7-star mantis was indeed worthy of being valued by the Eternals. Its strength was actually on par with Lu Yin's Palm Realm battle force. If Lu Yin wanted to win through brute force, he would have to rely on his limitless inner world. Lu Yin was shocked, and so was the 7-star mantis. It had never met anyone who wasn't an ultimate powerhouse who could withstand its attack. Other creatures could not do so either. This human was very powerful. "Human, you are the strongest in this space-time," the 7-star mantis said in an ear-piercing voice. Lu Yin gripped the hilt of his sword and pointed at the mantis. "You are the strongest monster in that space-time." "Chirp. You've picked the wrong opponent. Fortunately, you can bring some other fun to this game." "Chirp." The mantis blade fell, and Lu Yin had no choice but to use all his strength to defend himself. He was continuously pushed back by the blade and the 7-star mantis closed in on him. Victory was in its grasp. There was a loud bang and the sword broke. The 7-star mantis arm blade slashed horizontally, and before the blade reached its target, the void had already been sliced horizontally. With the strength that Lu Yin had just displayed, he was definitely not a match for this attack. Lu Yin growled and used the broken sword to block the attack. The blade slashed down and sent both Lu Yin and the broken sword flying. Lu Yin tightly grabbed the back of the mantis arm blade, which was the mantis claw. Behind him, a finger descended. The 7-star mantis suddenly turned around and saw Elder Chan and Lu Tianyi, who had been drawn out by Elder Chan's 3 young ancestral qi. This finger had come from Lu Tianyi's law of destruction. Lu Tiany's finger was so powerful that even a powerhouse with a sequence law might not be able to block it. This finger was the killing move that Lu Yin had prepared for the 7-star mantis. He had used himself as bait to capture the mantis and create an opportunity for Elder Chan. Lu Tiany's finger descended, piercing through the void. The fingertip rapidly approached Lu Yin, but it was unable to get any closer. No matter how fast the finger moved, Lu Yin felt as if it was out of his reach. His entire being felt out of place as this space and time did not seem right. By the time he reacted, his body had already moved far away from where he had been. Elder Chan's finger, which had been drawn out by 3 young ancestral qi, remained where it had been. A huge force swept over the blade and Lu Yin hurriedly let go. The mantis retracted its arm blade and retreated. Its triangular head tilted towards Elder Chan, and its long narrow eyes stared fixedly at Elder Chan. Human, you are the strongest. Elder Chan was confused. What had just happened? He spat out a mouthful of blood. Forcefully using 3 young ancestral qi to display Patriarch Tiany's sequence law had caused great damage to Elder Chan. If this attack had succeeded, it would have been worth it. However, it had failed and Elder Chan had lost his ability to fight. Lu Yin stared at the 7-star mantis. Just now time had disappeared. This meant that this mantis had used a speed that was equivalent to time and forcefully smoothed out time, causing what had happened in that period of time to be treated as if it had never existed. Or rather, it had quickly passed by, causing Patriarch Tiany's finger to fail. This was a speed comparable to time. Chirp chirp, an attack that can threaten me. That feeling is a sequence law, right? Chirp chirp, you're amazing. Human, where did you come from? You've set up a trap for me. The 7-star mantis stared at Elder Chan. In its eyes, Elder Chan was the true mastermind, and the attack that had threatened it had come from Elder Chan. Elder Chan's face paled as Patriarch Tiany slowly disappeared. He was already powerless. The 7-star mantis could tell, but that scene had been extremely dangerous. He was not sure if this human had been faking it. Lu Yin sighed. Since his plan had failed, he could only fight head-on. Lu Yin stirred up the spatial lines and visualized the Akalanatha King's elephant. His realm of the Palm battle force spread out, and his limitless inner world fused together. He punched out and the stars in his heart swayed. The 7-star mantis was wary of Elder Chan and did not pay much attention to Lu Yin. However, it would not ignore Lu Yin's sudden attack. It raised one of its arms, its eyes still fixed on Elder Chan as it swung its other arm at Lu Yin. This attack seemed ordinary, but it sealed off all of Lu Yin's paths of attack. The 7-star mantis might not have cultivated any blade techniques, but attacking was its instinct. This creature had been fighting with other creatures since the day it was born, and its instinctive killing sense was not inferior to that of a specially cultivated blade technique. In fact, it was even smoother. Lu Yin's celestial eye stared at the arm blade. Whether it was a weapon's cultivation method or a creature's instinctive killing, as long as he attacked, there would be traces. The celestial eye could see through all weapon techniques. The arm blade sealed off all paths of attack, but perfection did not exist in the universe. The 7-star mantis had not reached the level of a sequence law, let alone perfection. Under the celestial eye, Lu Yin stepped in reverse, reversing space-time. The arm blade suddenly froze and was pushed back at a strange angle. The 7-star mantis was shocked, and Lu Yin took advantage of this opportunity to punch the mantis' abdomen. This punch landed squarely on the 7-star mantis. The 7-star mantis would have dodged Elder Chan's sneak attack as quickly as possible, but Lu Yin's attack had been fair and square. The 7-star mantis had thought that it could block it, but it had been hit by Lu Yin instead. The power of 100 punches was something that even a sequence law powerhouse might not be able to withstand. The Cyclops King was bent over, and the 7-star mantis was not known for its defense. Green blood flowed from the corner of its mouth as its huge body was sent flying. Its long, narrow eyes were filled with disbelief. It could not believe that a human who had not even reached the extreme realm could injure it so severely with a single punch. This punch made it question life itself. Its abdomen was cracking. The 7-star mantis stared at Lu Yin with its long, narrow eyes and emitted an angry chirp. Lu Yin took a step forward, raised his hand again and punched out. The 7-star mantis no longer dared to underestimate Lu Yin. It was only because Elder Chan was an extreme realm powerhouse that it was wary of, but this human in front of it was also a great threat. 4 pairs of wings spread out from its back, and the 7-star mantis suddenly disappeared as its speed increased dramatically. Lu Yin frowned and stopped where he was. The 7-star mantis appeared from the side and slashed down with its arm blade. Lu Yin took a step back and the arm blade slashed in front of him. He grabbed the arm blade with his left hand and the slipper appeared in his right. The slipper had been upgraded once more, and Lu Yin was certain that the 7-star mantis would not be far from death if it was hit by the slipper now. Perhaps it was afraid of being ambushed twice, or perhaps it had sensed danger. But the moment the slipper appeared, the 7-star mantis spread out its 6 pairs of wings and suddenly disappeared. That strange feeling appeared again. Lu Yin held on tightly to the arm blade and did not let go. He wanted to slap the slipper away, but he could not find the 7-star mantis's body. His body was constantly moving, dragging Lu Yin through the void. Compared to time, Lu Yin could only be sure of the arm blade in his hand. The 7-star mantis wanted to use its speed to get rid of Lu Yin, but it still underestimated Lu Yin's strength. As long as the arm blade was caught by him, it would be difficult to get rid of it. The 7-star mantis was good at speed, not strength. Its strength did not surpass Lu Yin's, so it could not get rid of him at all. Chapter 3001. Although Lu Yin's body was out of place, his physical strength was able to withstand the sudden speed. This was what the 7-star mantis could not understand. How could a person who was not even an extreme powerhouse withstand this speed? The other arm blade slashed out horizontally. Even if this human could withstand this speed, it was impossible for him to attack again. This slash was enough to kill him. Lu Yin could not find the 7-star mantis's body for a while. Even the heavens I could not find it. The heavens I could see through weapons and techniques. In the future it could see through parallel time and space, but in the face of this speed, it needed to be able to see. However, when the 7-star mantis raised the other arm blade, the chill in his bones told him of the danger. Without hesitation, his slipper fell and slapped the arm blade in his left hand. With a bang, the arm blade shattered. Lu Yin heard a scream as the 7-star mantis's body retreated rapidly. Lu Yin was flung away, his head spinning, and he almost vomited. Looking up in the distance, one of the 7-star mantis's arm blades had shattered. 6 pairs of wings spread out on its back and flapped slowly. Its triangular head stared at Lu Yin. Green blood flowed from the corner of its hideous mouth. "Human, who are you?" Lu Yin's eyes flickered. Although the feeling of matching time was out of place, it gave him a different kind of understanding. There were 2 kinds of changes in reversing time. One came from the undying deities skipping time, and the other came from progenitor Chen's parallel time. The so-called parallel time and the 7-star mantis's speed were the same. The difference was that one relied on the changes in combat skills while the other relied on pure speed. Although he had learned the changes, he could not understand them. Then, could he first understand the speed and then experience the changes? This idea opened up another line of thought for Lu Yin. He looked at the 7-star mantis again. Not only was there murderous intent in his eyes, but he also felt like he had seen a treasure. "Human, who are you? You're targeting me. You are here to kill me." The 7-star mantis screamed. On the other side, far away, the battle between Jiang Qingyue and the progenitor realm mantis continued. It was extremely intense. Lu Yin did not say a word and rushed toward the 7-star mantis using reverse steps. After 2 lessons, the 7-star mantis did not intend to fight with Lu Yin again. He was sure that this time and space was a trap. After living in the universe for so many years, he had encountered many parallel universes with humans, but how many of them had reached the realm of extreme powerhouses? Moreover, it was impossible for a human who had yet to reach the pinnacle to injure it. The only ones it could think of were the 6 Direction sect and the other major forces in White Cloud City. Suddenly, the 7-star mantis screamed, "You're Lu Yin from the Above Heaven sect." Lu Yin was stunned. He had actually guessed it. The mantis spread its 6 pairs of wings, turned around and flew back to its own space-time. It stopped fighting as it realized that this human was definitely that Lu Yin. Otherwise, how could there be so many monsters? It was impossible for anyone below the extreme realm to be able to injure it, and if it really was that Lu Yin, then it would be troublesome. He was the one who had killed Xianxia. The 6 Directions Guild would send out ruthless people. Those who had helped the Eternals had retreated. There was no need for them to fight head-on. Lu Yin hurriedly gave chase, but how could he possibly catch up? Time seemed to have stopped. However, he didn't need to give chase. He had been in this space-time for dozens of years, preparing for this moment. The entire process, from the moment the seven-star mantis spread its 6 pairs of wings, was already an illusion. In the next moment the seven-star mantis body shook. A source-box array? After spending dozens of years in this space-time, Elder Chan had used the ancestral qi of the 3 yangs to create progenitor Hui and set up a source-box array that circled the entire space-time. Fortunately, this space-time was very small, and the source boxes that Lu Yin had obtained from De Shikong came in handy. Lu Yin had used the source box array to disrupt the void and prevent the seven-star mantis from tearing through the void to leave. Of course, this was only disrupting space-time. It did not mean that the seven-star mantis could not leave at all. However, no one knew what would happen if they entered a parallel space-time. The seven-star mantis was cautious, and it would not leave until the very last moment. At least for now, it was not that it did not have the confidence to defeat Lu Yin, but that it did not want to take the risk. There were risks left and right, so it would naturally choose one. And the choice it had chosen was to leave. Lu Yin had killed Jingzhu and was infamous in the outer realm. The seven-star mantis would rather take the risk and go to an unfamiliar parallel space-time than stay here and fight to the death. With its strength, the chances of encountering danger in another parallel space-time were much lower than dying at Lu Yin's hands. Since that was the case, why not leave? There was no problem with this choice, but it was too late. The source box array that Lu Yin had spent decades setting up was not really meant to trap the seven-star mantis. Lu Yin had been waiting for that one moment. The seven-star mantis tore through the void again and tried to leave, but a ray of light flickered around it and reversed for a second. The torn void returned to its original state and the seven-star mantis was shocked. Time had changed. That 1 second had prevented the seven-star mantis from leaving, and it had also given Lu Yin a chance to approach it. 1 second was enough for many things to be done. At the very least, it was enough for Lu Yin to appear behind the seven-star mantis and grab it. The 6 pairs of wings on the seven-star mantis back flapped. It had no intention of fighting and it only wanted to get away from Lu Yin. The speed that rivaled time was enough to allow the seven-star mantis to get away from Lu Yin before he could even see it clearly. As long as it increased the distance between them, it could tear through the void again, and the seven-star mantis did not believe that it would be stopped again. The ray of light had been able to reverse the seven-star mantis time by relying on that 1 second when the seven-star mantis tore through the void and was blocked by the source box array. Without that 1 second, the ray of light would not have been able to approach the seven-star mantis. Now the seven-star mantis had relied on its speed to increase the distance between them once again. In its mind, Lu Yin was helpless against it. Normally speaking, this was indeed the case. From the very beginning, the battle between Lu Yin and the others against the seven-star mantis had changed. Elder Chan's sneak attack had not been successful, and the seven-star mantis had not been severely injured. Furthermore, the seven-star mantis had been so cautious that it had not even thought of fighting. An enemy that only wanted to escape and one that possessed speed that rivaled time was simply unstoppable. Unfortunately, the seven-star mantis had run into Lu Yin, escaping at a speed that rivaled time and made it impossible for others to see it clearly. Lu Yin had the ability to look back at time and he could look back at 88 seconds. Now he only needed to look back at 1 second. The ray of light shuttled back and forth, and in that 1 second the seven-star mantis could do whatever it wanted. It did not even try to attack Lu Yin, it only wanted to escape. Lu Yin could clearly see the direction that the seven-star mantis was fleeing in, and even its location. Once he had identified the location, Lu Yin waved his ray of light and headed in that direction. The seven-star mantis had just appeared when it thought that it had already distanced itself from Lu Yin. It wanted to tear through the void, but the ray of light followed closely behind it. Everything had happened in just 1 second. In that 1 second, Elder Chan and the others could not understand what had happened. Even the seven-star mantis himself could not understand what had happened. It needed another second to tear through the void, and that 1 second was just enough for the ray of light to catch up. Just as the seven-star mantis was about to leave, the ray of light reversed for another second, and Lu Yin closed in once more. He raised his slipper high and slammed it down. The seven-star mantis was stunned. What was going on? How had he found it? The same thing happened again. The seven-star mantis thought that it could escape, but Lu Yin had seen the direction and location of its escape. The ray of light kept a close eye on the seven-star mantis, making it difficult for it to escape. The seven-star mantis collapsed. How was this possible? How could this human catch up to it? Impossible. Even the Eternal's power of laws might not be able to catch up to it, so how could this human do it? Elder Chan used the source box array, Lu Yin called out. Elder Chan endured his injuries and used the ancestral chi of the three Yangs to summon progenitor Hui and strengthen the control of the source box array. Lu Yin wanted the seven-star mantis to have a harder time tearing through the void. It would be best if he could increase the time from 1 second to 2 seconds. Not only would this increase the source box array, but it would also increase the spatial dimension. He looked at the lines in space and moved them. The seven-star mantis continued to shuttle through the void, and the ray of light continued to close in. As long as the seven-star mantis tore through the void, the ray of light would reverse for a second. No matter where the seven-star mantis fled, the ray of light would be able to track it down. Finally, Lu Yin used the spatial lines and Elder Chan's sourcebox array to delay the seven-star mantis from tearing through the void for 2 seconds. 2 seconds was too long, and Lu Yin did not use the ray of light to reverse for a second. Instead, he grabbed the seven-star mantis's wings, which were hard and cold to the touch. The seven-star mantis was shocked. "Human, let go of me. Beast, do you think you can escape?" Lu Yin's tone was icy. His palm realm battle force covered his palm as he exerted force. No matter how hard the seven-star mantis's wings were, they could not withstand the force. It wailed, "I'm not from the Eternals. Let me go and I'll help you deal with the Eternals." Jingzhe shouted the same thing before she died. Lu Yin was indifferent. The seven-star mantis was horrified. "You really are that, Lu Yin? Let me go. I'm not helping the Eternals. I'm willing to serve you. Let me go." Lu Yin exerted more force. The seven-star mantis's triangular head suddenly turned 180 degrees, and it opened its mouth to bite Lu Yin. This scene was extremely horrifying. It was a mantis and its mouth was terrifying. Lu Yin snorted. He grabbed the wings with his right hand and grabbed the slipper with his left. He then aimed it at the seven-star mantis's triangular face. The seven-star mantis was clearly afraid, and the slipper shattered its arm blade. That was the toughest part of its body, and if it was hit again it would definitely die. "Lu Yin, Dao Master Lu, I won't do it again. I'll do whatever you say. Let me go. Please let me go." The seven-star mantis begged. Lu Yin coldly said, "Don't you like to test people's natures? Then let's play a game. Fly as fast as you can and I won't hit you. Let's see if you can shake me off. If you can shake me off, I won't bother you. If you can't shake me off, you'll die." The seven-star mantis was confused. "Fly. You're not willing?" I'm willing. You really won't hit me?" He was terrified of the slipper. "This is just a game. You like to play games and so do I. Let's see who wins." Lu Yin's tone was relaxed and he grabbed the wings with one hand and the slipper with the other. He was full of threat. The seven-star mantis's narrow eyes scanned its surroundings, and then it suddenly spread its 6 pairs of wings and flew through the air. Normally, once it displayed this speed, no one would be able to catch up to it unless they had the ability to manipulate time. Coincidentally, Lu Yin did. This was the most frustrating thing as it had actually met its nemesis. Chapter 3002. The strange feeling appeared once more as Lu Yin's stream of light continued to revolve around his body. He did not have the ability to see through the seven-star mantis speed. All he could do was adapt to this speed and hold on tightly to its wings. The entire spacetime became the seven-star mantis flying stage. On the other side, Jiang Qingyue's lips were stained with blood, and her white sword was stained with mottled blood. It was green and it had come from the progenitor realm mantis. The progenitor realm mantis had seen the seven-star mantis fight with Lu Yin. It was not stupid and it wanted to leave as well, but it was not the seven-star mantis and did not have that kind of speed. Every time it tried to leave, it would be interrupted by Jiang Qingyue. Even without a source box array it could not escape. "Human, you cannot defeat me. Give up. Your target is the boss of the seven stars mantis and it has nothing to do with me. I promise that I will not target humans in the future," the progenitor realm mantis said, its voice sharp and piercing. Jiang Qingyue had fought with it for so long and both of them had been injured. From the progenitor realm mantis's point of view, it had not been easy for Jiang Qingyue to fight with it for so long, and it was impossible for her to win. Young master, leave the rest to me, the dragon turtle said from within Jiang Qingyue's sleeve. Jiang Qingyue's tone was cold. It is my opponent. The dragon turtle had a complicated expression. Young master, you are not thinking of using that move, are you? Jiang Qingyue did not answer and her sword slowly lowered. The progenitor realm mantis relaxed when it saw her like this. Human, you have made a wise choice. It then tore through the void to leave. Suddenly, snowflakes danced in the deep darkness of space. It was unknown where they had come from, but it was bone-chilling. The progenitor realm mantis was confused and it had a bad premonition. It hurriedly tore through the void, but it discovered that its movements had slowed. A white sword had appeared behind Jiang Qingyue at some point. This sword was identical to the one in her hand, but it gave off an inexplicable sense of sorrow. The dragon turtle sighed. This sword had belonged to Kong Tianzhao, the one who had died. Jiang Qingyue had two masters. One had defeated the other and the other had died. That battle had become a scene that Jiang Qingyue would never forget for the rest of her life. With the support of Shi, her other master had appeared. This sword represented the other Kong Tianzhao, that powerful man. The white long sword slowly descended, overlapping with the sword in Jiang Qingyue's hand. The ancestor realm mantis stared blankly at the other side. This human had changed. It seemed to see another shadow. White robes and a white sword standing aloof from the world. Under the dancing snowflakes he took a step forward and when he appeared again he was already in front of it. The progenitor realm mantis subconsciously raised its arm blade and slashed out. With a soft sound the two arm blades broke apart at the same time. The incision was smooth and clean and a white shadow flashed past. Jiang Qingyue was still standing in place looking at it coldly. Of S. 2. Nobody could help her. Looking up, the seven-star mantis shuttled through the sky. They couldn't see it. They only knew that spacetime was fragmenting. Lu Yin grabbed the mantis's wings tightly. He had no time to care about Jiang Qingyue. He was experiencing the speed of time. As time passed, his feet moved. He understood the changes that progenitor Chen had imparted to him. Now he just had to incorporate those changes into his speed. The seven-star mantis's heart was crumbling. It liked to toy with human nature, but in another sense, it was being toyed with by human nature. It was afraid of death and wanted to escape, but it couldn't. The human on its back had the ability to kill it at any time, but he just wouldn't. This feeling of despair caused it to crumble. The humans who had been toyed with by it felt the same way. This was a game of life and death. It didn't want to play this game anymore. The word game was a nightmare, an abyss. The sense of dissonance gradually disappeared, and Lu Yin's footsteps became smoother and smoother. He was getting used to the speed and the changes. He looked around and saw the seven-star praying mantis flapping its wings and saw its trajectory. He gradually understood what the speed of parallel time was. Perhaps he was still unable to successfully reverse time to parallel time, but he was already a beginner and was not far from success. In other words, he could succeed at any time. At the same time, the seven-star mantis's mentality was on the verge of collapse. It knew that there was no way it could escape this human. The feeling of a guillotine hanging over its head was too terrifying. It had to rely on itself to escape. It had seen too much of human nature. Humans' greatest weakness was not selfishness, cowardice, or fear of death, but their emotions. Its long, narrow eyes suddenly stared into the distance at Jiang Qingyue. It gradually slowed down, raised its arm blade and slashed down. At the same time, it raised its blade again and slashed at Elder Chan. 2 slashes were enough to kill these two humans. It wanted Lu Yin to make a choice. He could either save them or let them die with him. It had deliberately slowed down to give Lu Yin enough time to save both of them at the same time. That way it would have enough time to escape. It did not believe that Lu Yin would be able to stop it while saving them. No matter how strong this human was, there was a limit to his strength. However, it did not know that there were other creatures besides Lu Yin and the others present. Facing the seven-star mantis's blade, the dragon turtle and the hellworm reacted at the same time. The dragon turtle blocked in front of Jiang Qingyue while the hellworm raised its claws to grab the blade that was slashing at Elder Chan. Both attacks were blocked at the same time. The seven-star mantis was shocked. There were more enemies. You're courting death. Lu Yin roared and slammed down with his slipper, shattering the mantis's wings. The mantis howled and frantically twisted its body, but its speed had also decreased. Its wings were the key to maintaining its speed, but now that they had been destroyed, it could no longer increase its speed. Human, I'll kill you. The mantis's body suddenly shriveled up, and Lu Yin slammed down with his slipper on its back, shattering it. However, before that happened, a much smaller mantis crawled out of its body. This was the mantis's true body, and its huge exterior was just a shell. This was its life-saving technique. The smaller mantis's true body also had 6 pairs of wings, and as it spread its wings, its speed increased to a level comparable to that of time. It would definitely have its revenge, but it had to escape first. Lu Yin's gaze turned cold as he tried to reverse time and parallel time. At that moment the universe stopped and only he and the mantis were moving. Lu Yin stared at the mantis closely. The mantis frantically chased after Lu Yin, its reverse steps becoming smoother and smoother. The mantis turned around in shock. How was this possible? This human had caught up to it? Previously, it had relied on time to prevent Lu Yin from leaving, but now it was certain that this human had reached a speed similar to its own. How was this possible? How did he do it? The mantis could not figure it out no matter how hard it racked its brain. Lu Yin had lamented more than once that progenitor Chen had a unique talent in the creation of battle techniques. It was simply unparalleled, and now that he had experienced the speed of the mantis, this feeling was even more profound. If he could catch up to the mantis's speed, Lu Yin would have a way to stop it or even kill it. This life-saving technique could only be used once, but it could not be used a second time. General Appointment Platform. 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12. The mantis stared blankly at the progenitors surrounding it, stunned. Where did so many powerhouses come from? Summoning so many progenitors was not easy for Lu Yin. Fortunately, he had an endless amount of astral sources in his body, which was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Even progenitors did not have as many astral sources as he did. Only with so many astral sources could he guarantee that he could summon so many progenitors. In the end, 17 progenitors were summoned and they covered the entire spacetime. Even though the 7-star praying mantis had a speed comparable to that of time, it was still unable to surpass Lu Yin's speed and awareness. Lu Yin did not need these summoned progenitors to cause any harm to the 7-star praying mantis. All he needed was to stall for time. The arm blade slashed out and the progenitors were split in 2. Then one after another they were cut down and reduced to nothingness. The mantis wanted to tear through the void and leave, but under the influence of the source box array, it did not even need a second to tear through the void. Even a second was a luxury for the mantis. One progenitor after another was cut into nothingness. Lu Yin continued to approach and the threat he posed to the mantis increased. The mantis wailed again. Master Lu, I'll submit to you and not resist. You also want a powerhouse like me to help you deal with the Eternals, right? I can even join the Eternals and help you uncover their secrets. Master Lu, let me go. I don't want to die. Lu Yin did not say a word. The mantis had to die as its last bit of value had disappeared. Its death was to pay tribute to the humans it had killed. They were from different races and Lu Yin would not say that the mantis was wrong. However, as a human he had to take revenge. This was his principle. The mantis saw that Lu Yin was still approaching, and there were still nearly half a progenitor around. If it continued to be delayed, Lu Yin would catch up sooner or later. The mantis had been able to contend with Lu Yin because of its speed, and the Eternals also cared about its speed. Without its advantage in speed, the mantis was not much stronger than a progenitor who had yet to reach the sequence laws. Master Lu, I can help you a lot. You humans need me. The mantis was still begging. Lu Yin looked at it. Last one. Kill. The mantis shuddered. This was one of the rules of the game it had set in the first 5 of the 7 continents. It was to only kill the last person in a team to bring about despair and struggle for humanity. Now it had become the last person Lu Yin wanted to kill. Master Lu, are you really going to fight me? The mantis's tone changed and its voice became sharp. Its eyes were ferocious. Another progenitor blocked its path, but it was cut off by the mantis' arm blade. The mantis turned around, faced Lu Yin and then charged at him. Lu Yin was stunned. It was actually charging at him? Now what was this? Chapter 3003. The 7-star praying mantis came to a sudden stop as it approached Lu Yin, then flew off in another direction. Lu Yin hurriedly chased after it, only to find that the mantis had changed directions again, leaving him confused. After a few times, Lu Yin realized that the mantis had left 7 spots in space, and he was surrounded by the 7 spots. 7-star slash. The mantis arm blades fell and Lu Yin tried to rush out of the encirclement, but it was too late. The spot closest to him exploded with a slash and the 7 spots connected. The first spot exploded with 1 slash, the second with 2 slashes, the third with 4 slashes, and so on until the 7th spot exploded with 32 slashes. Lu Yin casually shattered the first slash with his slipper. Although it was powerful enough to kill a progenitor, it was not a threat to him. The most troublesome part was the number. The 7th spot had 32 slashes and the power was the same as the first. This meant that Lu Yin had to endure 32 slashes from the mantis. It might have been a killing move to others, but it was not a threat to Lu Yin. He had faced similar moves more than once, and the most recent one had been the Moon Immortal's Moonlight Slash from the Tri-Moon Alliance. Every slash had the same power, and the mantis had used numbers to suppress him. Unfortunately, numbers were useless against him. The slippers shattered the slashes one by one. Since the 7-star mantis needed to perform slashes, it could not move away. It was controlling the 7 points. Seeing that the slashes were ineffective against Lu Yin, the mantis' expression turned sinister. 7 stars as 1. As soon as he finished speaking, the 7 dots appeared once more, and 128 slashes shot towards Lu Yin, covering the sky and the earth. Space itself was torn to shreds. The dragon turtle hurriedly brought Jiang Qingyue and Zhao ran out of this spacetime. The caged WRM and Elder Chan left as well, leaving only Lu Yin and the mantis. Fortunately, everyone who had been brought to this spacetime by Lu Yin and the others were all gathered on the caged WRM's back. Otherwise they would not have been able to leave. The entire spacetime was shattering. Lu Yin no longer used his slipper to block the slashes. Instead his entire body was covered with Palm Realm battle force and he took them head-on. The mantis was shocked. Its attacks were not weak and there were so many of them. 128 slashes was something that even Sequence Law's powerhouses would be wary of, but this person was actually taking them head-on? Lu Yin faced the onslaught of attacks head-on and took a step forward, smashing through many of the attacks. He then faced the mantis and raised his slipper, slamming it down. In the praying mantis' eyes, Lu Yin had transformed into a giant, and he gave it a sense of despair and a sense of fatal danger. It wanted to escape but it couldn't. The 7 stars slash was a battle technique that it had created, and once it was used, especially when the 7 stars were combined, the mantis body would be connected to the 7 points, making it impossible for it to escape. If that wasn't the case, it would have used it a long time ago. He had only used it in this life and death situation, but he hadn't expected that it would still be unable to harm Lu Yin. "Master Lu, I beg you." There was a thump, and before the mantis could even finish its sentence, Lu Yin had smacked it to death with his slipper. Even in death, the mantis had never imagined that it would die one day. It thought it was fast enough that even the Eternals would be wary of it. It thought it wouldn't be targeted because it hadn't completely interfered in the war between the humans and the Eternals. It just liked to play games, that's all. But this human just wouldn't let it go. It had already submitted to him and it was already so strong. Lu Yin gripped his slipper and panted heavily as he watched the mantis corpse float in the air. He let out a deep breath. It was over. Ever since he had broken through to half progenitor, aside from the powerhouses of the Sequence Laws, all other progenitors were about the same in his eyes. There was nothing that he couldn't deal with, but the mantis had shown him a different side. The Sequence Laws weren't the only way to become stronger. Regardless of whether it was strength, speed, or strength, once one reached a certain level, they would all possess extraordinary strength. This mantis had just happened to run into him. If it had been anyone else, even Patriarch Tianyi, they might not have been able to kill it. When he thought of this, Lu Yin immediately called out a general. "In my name I call out a general." When he saw the mantis brand appear on the stage, Lu Yin relaxed and became excited. He didn't care about the mantis. First, this beast had to pay the price for what it had done. Second, he didn't need it to submit to him. As long as it was willing, Lu Yin could use its strength. This was the terrifying aspect of the Lu family. There were now 19 progenitors in Lu Yin's selection stage. In the past, the strongest had been the Cyclops King, but now it was the 7-star mantis. After all, the Cyclops King had lost the power of the sequence, while the seven-star mantis had full strength. Before this, Lu Yin had called out astral beasts, such as the amethyst beast and the sylvan dragon lord. They were all astral beasts, so he could naturally call out the mantis. With the mantis, Lu Yin was even more confident in fighting against the powerhouses from the outer realms. In the surroundings, the starry sky continued to crack open, revealing the void of the world. This space-time had been completely destroyed, but fortunately there weren't any living creatures. This was also why Lu Yin had specifically chosen this space-time. It was small and had few living creatures. Not long after, Lu Yin arrived at the space-time where the mantis was and looked at the 7 continents in the distance. There were so many mantises there that they didn't know that the mantis and the progenitor had already been killed. When she saw Lu Yin arrive, Jiang Qingyue relaxed. "The mantis is dead?" Elder Chan asked anxiously. The dragon turtle also looked at Lu Yin. The mantis was a creature that even the lightning lord cared about. Lu Yin smiled. "It's time to call out a general." Elder Chan laughed. Jiang Qingyue relaxed. The dragon turtle opened its mouth. What a monster. Calling out the mantis meant that Lu Yin officially had the confidence to fight against a powerhouse who controlled the laws of the sequence. This was a qualitative change, and it was also their greatest guarantee for this trip. Lu Yin looked at the 7 continents in the distance. "I'll use these mantises in exchange for the recognition of this space-time." With that, he disappeared. Young master, old master will definitely be satisfied with this son-in-law. He can even deal with the mantis. Although that thing isn't very strong, its speed is top-notch and it has enough ability to stay alive. Old master will wake up laughing when he sees it die, the dragon turtle praised. Jiang Qingyue ignored the dragon turtle's words and looked at the 7 continents. The mantis? That might not be what Lu Yin cares about the most. His goal this time was to find a parallel spacetime with a different flow of time. If there were enough of these spacetimes, what kind of transformation would it bring him? Elder Chan's face was still a little pale. His sneak attack had failed in the previous battle, and he had thought that victory was hopeless. He hadn't expected Lu Yin to still be able to create a miracle. What he had grasped was unimaginable, and he would definitely be able to lead humanity to greater heights in the future. The spacetime where the mantis resided had a flow of 80 times, which was a lot. It was worth it to pay a higher price for this. Lu Yin had waited for 35 years to battle the mantis. After that, he swept through the 7 continents as quickly as possible and completely exterminated the mantises that took pleasure in slaughtering humans. After that, he spent another 10 years to become the spiritual pillar of everyone on the 7 continents before he was finally recognized by this spacetime. The time that he could look back in time had increased to 245 seconds. With an additional 80 seconds, Lu Yin had a different feeling about the time that he could look back in time. Previously, he had sensed that looking back in time might not be the true use of the time. Now this feeling was growing stronger. He had a feeling that he was about to grasp something, but he still lacked the time to look back. He had to continue searching for a parallel spacetime with a different flow of time. He had spent 45 years in the mantis spacetime, but only half a year had passed in the origin space. It had been more than 3 years since he had left the Above Heavens sect. It was time for him to return to prevent any accidents. Of course, he also had to settle the people here before he left to prevent any mantises from not returning. He had to rely on the compass to leave, but returning was very simple. He could just return to the Eternal Kingdom. The void distorted and the caged worm disappeared from this spacetime. Less than an hour after Lu Yin and the others left, a figure arrived in this spacetime. If Lu Yin was here, he would definitely recognize this person as one of the captains of the True God Guard. The middle plate had come to search for the mantis since the Eternals needed the mantis' help. However, he quickly discovered that the mantises had all disappeared from the 7 continents, and this spacetime had changed greatly. The middle plate returned to the disaster zone and reported this matter. After Lu Yin and the others returned to the Above Heavens sect and confirmed that it was peaceful, they set off again to continue searching for a parallel spacetime with a different flow of time. In the blink of an eye, another 2 years passed. To Lu Yin and the others, it was not just 2 years but 60 years. Lu Yin's time had also increased by 25 seconds, reaching 270 seconds. Over the years, he had brought Elder Chan, Jiang Qingyue, and the others to wander through parallel spacetime and did not encounter any danger. Zhao Ran was still as naive and happy as ever. As long as someone drank her tea, there was nothing unusual. Jiang Qingyue was still the same, but her gaze had softened when she looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin now knew how she had killed the progenitor mantis. It was both a killer move and an inner demon. This situation was the most dangerous in the progenitor's origin tribulation. However, Jiang Qingyue was from White Cloud City, and her cultivation path was different from astral sources. No matter which path she chose, it was not easy to reach the progenitor realm. If she did not overcome her inner demon, she would eventually pay a heavy price. Elder Chan had long since recovered the price of using Lu Tiany's power. The most noteworthy person was the ghost monkey. That damned monkey had actually said that he felt like he had broken through to the progenitor realm, which left Lu Yin speechless. Had this guy cultivated before? Aside from the increase in time reversal, Lu Yin had also become much more proficient in using time reversal. He felt that he would one day reach Mr. Mu's level of cultivation, which could cause time to stop when he appeared. That would be impressive. Be careful, we're almost there. Although the chances of encountering danger were low, Lu Yin would always warn Elder Chan every time they arrived at a new parallel spacetime. The next parallel spacetime that they would arrive at was not one with a different flow of time, but rather a normal one. Only by using the compass to determine their direction would they be able to find a parallel spacetime with a different flow of time. The void distorted and the caged worm appeared. It vigilantly scanned its surroundings, but there was no danger. It was so beautiful up ahead. Lu Yin and the others also looked up ahead. The heavens should have been deep and dark. They had been to many parallel spacetimes and there had been very few exceptions. However, up ahead, they saw a faint radiance that resembled clouds. It extended into the heavens just like the fifth mainland. Chapter 3004. Lu Yin opened his heaven's eye and looked ahead, but he couldn't see the end. However, he could see a flourishing civilization above the clouds. Was this a human civilization? Were those wings of light on their backs? Just as he was in shock, the sky suddenly changed and a bright light shone above his head. Lu Yin and the rest looked up and saw a palm of light that covered the sky, causing the entire void to tremble. Divine Kingdom. Do not trespass. Retreat. There was a loud shout and Jiang Qingyue groaned, her face pale. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. This voice had penetrated his brain and caused his ears to ring. Caged Drake looked up at the giant palm in a daze and panicked. What's that? The dragon turtle was shocked. Lu Yin looked at the dragon turtle. Divine Kingdom. Have you heard of it? The dragon turtle was at a loss. No. Trespassers die. A loud voice resounded through the sky as the palm pressed down on Caged Drake, intending to crush Lu Yin and the rest. Lu Yin was furious. They hadn't even met, yet the dragon turtle was trying to kill them. They were all from a human civilization, yet the dragon turtle was showing no mercy. He took out Mount Supreme from his cosmic ring and let Elder Chan and the rest in. At the same time he leaped up with his slippers. Who's playing tricks over there? Get out here. The slippers slammed into the palm of light, and Lu Yin used his heaven's eye to see that the dragon turtle was twisting around the palm, forming an inexplicably complex character. It was this character that was exerting pressure. However, he had seen too many dragon turtle. Did the dragon turtle really want to crush him? How was this possible? There was a bang, and the void trembled as countless cracks spread out and swept towards the beautiful clouds in the distance, cutting through the void. At the same time, a pair of beautiful eyes opened far away in shock. You actually blocked it? You came with ill intentions. Fight me with the power of the four beasts. Great Sage Transcendence, suppress. Lu Yin's slippers cracked the palm of light, but just as he was about to shatter it, his pupils shrank. He saw an endless amount of dragon turtle's eyes spread throughout the sky and enter the palm of light. If the dragon turtle's eye had only formed a single character before, then these dragon turtle's eye had formed an entire palm of light that was suppressing him. Lu Yin was shocked. He had only seen so many dragon turtle's eye when the 7 sky gods and the Grand Empyreans attacked. Without any hesitation he slipped away and used the reverse step to parallel time, vanishing in an instant. The palm of light crushed the void and shattered everything around it, but there was no trace of Lu Yin. Far away, the owner of those beautiful eyes was a young girl wearing a purple veil. She frowned when she saw Lu Yin fleeing. He hadn't died and she could sense that this person had actually been able to escape from her palm. Who exactly was he? There was no aura of those monsters. No matter who it was, they deserved to die for trespassing into the Divine Kingdom. As she thought about this, the young girl closed her eyes and opened her arms. Her graceful figure was as beautiful as a painting. She stepped forward barefooted. With her as the center, the entire space seemed to shrink countless times as it circled around her, constantly searching. Soon she opened her eyes and found it. On the other side of the battlefield, Lu Yin was fleeing backwards, bewildered. What the hell? There was actually such a powerhouse in this space-time. He was definitely comparable to the 7 heavenly gods. He could not fight against him head-on, but he could escape using reverse steps. The other party was not at the level of the bitter adversity realm. What kind of space-time was this? Directly expelling the outsiders and killing them if they didn't leave was too tyrannical. The Divine Kingdom? This name was in line with this method. The dragon turtle did not know, which meant that White Cloud City had never come into contact with this Divine Kingdom. Lu Yin did not know if the Six Direction Association had. There were too many parallel spacetimes in the universe and no one knew what would appear. Lu Yin was very curious about this Divine Kingdom and he wanted to see what kind of kingdom it was. If possible, it would be a powerful ally against the Eternals. Just as he was thinking about this, a palm of light suddenly formed above his head and ruthlessly crushed down. Lu Yin was shocked. Had they found him? How had they done this? He did not hesitate and continued to flee using reverse steps. But no matter which direction he fled in, the other party seemed to be able to find him and would not rest until he was dead. Lu Yin helplessly took out the progenitor platform and summoned a progenitor to escape. The progenitor was quickly crushed into nothingness by the palm of light, and Lu Yin took the opportunity to retract his aura and stop moving. After a while, the palm of light did not appear. Lu Yin sighed. He had deceived them. Who was this person? How had they found him? It did not seem like they could see through reverse steps, and even if they could, they would not have been able to constantly flee. But if they could not see through reverse steps, how had they found him? Lu Yin waited for a long time, but the palm of light still did not appear. Lu Yin looked at the sky. Could it be that they had retracted their aura? Or did they think that he was dead? Far away, the girl opened her eyes in confusion. Lu Yin should not have died so easily, as a single palm could kill him. How could he have escaped so many times? However, she could not find him. The other party had completely retracted their aura, making it difficult for her to find him. This was an expert and one who was skilled at concealment. Divine Lady, the day of God prayer is about to arrive. All citizens are waiting for this moment to send you their most sincere blessings and prayers. The girl calmly asked, "Is everything ready?" "It's ready. Order the entire country to be on guard. An outsider has entered." The person outside was clearly surprised. "An outsider? Didn't you suppress him? Go." "Yes." The girl looked into the distance. Could this person have come at this time for the day of God prayer? From a distance the clouds had a faint glow, but the closer one got, the weaker the glow became. When Lu Yin stepped onto the clouds, the glow completely disappeared. This was a continent, but it was a continent made of clouds. There were too many strange phenomena in the universe, but Lu Yin was not too surprised by this. He quickly found something that looked like a village and he saw many people with wings of light. Aside from the fact that these people had a pair of wings, there was nothing different about them. Lu Yin stayed in this village for a few days and Elder Chan and the others came out as well. They disguised themselves as people from this spacetime and experienced the culture of this place. This spacetime was called the Divine Kingdom and it was completely sealed off from the outside world. Lu Yin also knew who had attacked them. It was the goddess, an existence that had been deified by the Divine Kingdom. She was just a young girl. When he first heard this news, Lu Yin could not believe that he was being chased by a young girl. However, a few days later with their cultivations, they easily learned the secrets of the Divine Kingdom. Lu Yin understood that this divine lady was not very powerful, but she could borrow the power of the legendary 4 symbols that protected this spacetime. With the power of the 4 symbols, generations of divine ladies protected this spacetime, preventing any powerful enemies from invading. Lu Yin did not know what the 4 symbols were. There were cultivators in the Divine Kingdom, but they cultivated a power similar to an astral source. There was nothing special about it and it was not the power of the 4 symbols. Lu Yin was more concerned about the Divine Lady. The Divine Lady was actually able to borrow the power of the 4 symbols to attack him. What kind of strength could suppress him? That palm of light was covered in sequence particles, and it was definitely at the level of the 7 sky gods. For an ordinary girl to be able to borrow the power of the 7 sky gods was abnormal. Lu Yin could only think of one possibility, and that was that this divine lady had been recognized by this spacetime, just like how he had been recognized by the primordial space. That was why this girl could borrow the power of the 4 symbols to attack and locate Lu Yin. Too passionate, too honest. The ghost monkey returned and sighed as he leaned against Elder Chan's shadow. Elder Chan sighed as well. It's been many years since I've seen such an honest person. Perhaps we've come into contact with too few ordinary people, but there are actually many such people among them. Lu Yin looked at Elder Chan. It doesn't seem like they're pretending to be honest. They're really honest. The people in this village are pure and kind. There's no deception or oppression. They only help and support each other, Elder Chan said. Lu Yin also realized that this situation was not limited to this village. Around them and even further away, the people they saw seemed to be living in a fairy tale. Although there were also conflicts, arguments, and even fights, there was a limit to it. Regardless of whether they were cultivators or ordinary people, there was no hierarchy. Everyone was very harmonious, to the point that it was abnormal. Based on Lu Yin's many years of cultivation experience, this situation was either a disguise, or these people's thoughts had been deceived. All of their actions and logic followed a certain person. He was more inclined towards the latter because even if it was a disguise, it was impossible to disguise everyone in this spacetime. However, a powerhouse with a sequence laws could change the thoughts of everyone in this spacetime as long as they were strong enough. Jiang Qingyue and Zhao Ran returned as well. Zhao Ran was holding many flowers with a blank expression, and she was almost buried in them. I said that I liked those flowers and then they gave them all to me. Zhao Ran was confused. Jiang Qingyue's tone was gloomy. They're so passionate that it's hard to get used to. They clearly forbade outsiders from entering and they even used killing methods. The dragon turtle said, outsiders are forbidden but the people inside are so passionate. Their passion isn't directed at outsiders. Once our identities are exposed, they'll be as passionate as they are now. Everyone, there's something wrong with this spacetime. Be careful. I think they're very nice. Zhao Ran began to arrange the flowers with a happy expression. The ghost monkey said earnestly, you're still too young. Human nature is complicated. It can be nasty or tolerant, but it shouldn't be this harmonious. Something's wrong. 7th bro, let's go. Lu Yin looked into the distance. I want to see what's going on with this spacetime. Jiang Qingyue looked at Lu Yin. Let's go to the deity's realm. The land under our feet is called the Divine Kingdom and it can also be called the Cloud Kingdom. The center of this kingdom is called the deity's realm, and that goddess is in charge of it. If we want to see this spacetime clearly, the deity's realm is the best place to go. Young master, it's a little risky. This spacetime doesn't seem easy to deal with, the dragon turtle advised. Elder Chan said, we shouldn't be enemies with it. Let's see what's going on first. I really want to see if this entire spacetime is like this. Their kindness and tolerance aren't faked. At least what I see isn't fake. I want to go to the deity's realm to take a look. Elder Chan rarely made requests, and this was exactly what Lu Yin wanted to do. Then let's go to the deity's realm. The Divine Kingdom's biggest event, the Day of Prayer, is about to arrive. Let's go take a look. There's no rush. Let's follow the village's team and try our best to see this space-time clearly. Chapter 3005. The entire Divine Kingdom was huge, no less than the Outerverse. It took a long time to travel from this village to the Divine Realm. Fortunately, there were special transportation tools that could pass through the clouds like wormholes in space. Even at the edge of the Divine Kingdom, ordinary people could reach the Divine Realm in a few days. Lu Yin and the others blended in with the village team. They did not attract attention and could easily sneak into the Divine Realm. Along the way, they saw many people from the Divine Prefecture nation. They passed by many cities, villages, and even places where clans and forces were located. No matter where they were, the harmonious atmosphere was exactly the same. The people in the cities did not look down on the people in the villages, and the powerful cultivators did not look down on the ordinary people. Everyone was treated equally, which was simply incredible. When Lu Yin and the others reached the Divine Realm with the village team, they saw the same thing. The people in the village were not reserved and greeted everyone. Some of the people in the Divine Realm were powerful cultivators, and they took the initiative to greet Lu Yin and the others. They were very enthusiastic. They were not used to this kind of enthusiasm. Lu Yin could see that they welcomed others from the bottom of their hearts. This was a situation that everyone should pursue, but it made him uncomfortable. After so many years of cultivation, he was used to cheating and scheming. He was used to wandering between life and death, and it was as if he was walking on thin ice. He had never encountered such a scene. These people were very friendly, but Lu Yin and the others found it difficult to accept. This was the life they had always wanted, but it was difficult to adapt to suddenly facing this kind of life. Elder Chan's gaze was complicated. Ever since the astral tree separated the fifth mainland, I created the Hall of Honor. I hoped to bring the fifth mainland to this state, but it was just an unattainable dream. At first I wanted to come to the divine realm because I did not believe that such a place existed. Perhaps the people in the remote parts of the divine kingdom were simple and honest, and the closer they were to the center of power, the easier it was for ambition and darkness to grow. I was wrong. It is the same here. I really want to know who did this and who can make these people live in peace. This kind of scene is the greatest irony to the dark side of human nature. Lu Yin and Jiang Qingyue did not speak. No cultivator would be able to adapt to this kind of scene. Cultivation was a struggle against the heavens, a struggle against the fate of others. How could there be harmony? Where was tolerance? Once it was tolerated, it was not far from death. Even if the celestial sect suppressed the primordial space and everyone obeyed Lu Yin's orders, the conflict between their existences would not disappear and no one could resolve it. Now the scene that Lu Yin and the rest were witnessing left them shocked. They were filled with curiosity about the goddess. What kind of person could cause such a huge divine kingdom to become like this? The deity realm was as beautiful as a celestial being. Compared to the Six Directions Guild, this was a true paradise. Lu Yin and the others stayed in the divine realm, interacting with others as ordinary people. They felt a rare sense of peace and tranquility. As the day of prayer drew closer, the atmosphere in the divine realm became more and more lively. All sorts of methods of prayer appeared, and it was an eye-opener for Lu Yin and the others. As far as the eye could see, there were people everywhere. There were wings of light everywhere, shining brilliantly. On this day, the colorful Milky Way spiraled in all directions and formed a lake above the divine land. It was like a mirror that turned the entire divine land upside down. Lu Yin and the others also saw their own reflections in the lake above their heads and were quite surprised. "What are you doing?" Zhou Ran asked. Someone nearby said, "The goddess god praying dance is inside the lake." You don't know?" Lu Yin hurriedly pulled Zhou Ran away. The goddess praying method was common knowledge in the divine kingdom. If he didn't know this, it would be easy for him to be suspected. He wasn't sure if the goddess believed that he was dead. The lake rippled with the astral river, illuminating every single person within the deity's realm. This scene was extremely shocking. Although the deity's realm was only the center of a small deity's realm, it was still extremely large and was equivalent to a weave in the outerverse. This scene was equivalent to an entire Weave's lake being pulled over, and it was reflected above everyone's heads. When the lake appeared, it meant that the day of prayer had entered its countdown. Beautiful figures flew into the sky and entered the lake, dancing gracefully within it. This was the prelude to the day of prayer and the goddess dance. This was the scene that everyone in the divine kingdom was looking forward to. Only pure girls could enter the lake and dance. The divine kingdoms were harmonious and tolerant of each other, but that didn't mean that they had lost their 7 emotions and 6 desires. Instead, there was another way of thinking that suppressed their desires. Their desires were suppressed, but they didn't have the desire for beautiful things. There was no one who didn't want to see beautiful girls dance. Many girls flew into the sky, and many of them had been waiting for this day to remain pure. They had prepared beautiful clothes for this day, and their beautiful dance moves were displayed in front of everyone in the divine realm. This was another type of battle. Lu Yin sat on the roof and looked at the sky. There were too many girls in the lake, and only those who were extremely confident in themselves dared to enter the lake and dance. He had never seen so many people dance before. It was a spectacular sight and it was filled with an exotic charm. "7th bro, they're too beautiful. Let's do it. They're all ours and we'll take them back as mascots," the ghost monkey urged excitedly. The dragon turtle looked at him with disdain. "You're just a shadow, yet you're still so lecherous. Shameless." The ghost monkey was furious. "What does that have to do with you? You're just jealous. There are no female turtles in this world. Stupid monkey, what nonsense are you spouting? What, did you see a female turtle? Zhao Ran asked weakly. Do you want some tea? Oh. No. Jiang Qingyue frowned. Shut up. The dragon turtle shut up, and the ghost monkey smiled flatteringly, as if he was looking at the mistress of the above heaven sect. Elder Chan praised. They're so beautiful. It's good to be young. Lu Yin smiled. There's something special about this kind of competition. We can have one when we return to the above heaven sect. It'll let everyone relax and give the girls a chance to show off. Haha, those little bastards will be overjoyed. Elder Chan was overjoyed. Lu Yin shook his head. It's a pity that Jiang Chen isn't here. Otherwise he could find a wife and stop thinking about Luoshan. Jiang Qingyue's heart skipped a beat. Luoshan? Lu Yin remembered. I haven't told you. Jiang Chen likes Luoshan, but it's one-sided. Jiang Qingyue nodded and didn't say anything else. Elder Chan looked at Jiang Qingyue with a smile. Do you want to try? Jiang Qingyue was stunned and looked at Elder Chan. Me? Elder Chan nodded. Lu Yin blinked and looked at Jiang Qingyue. He had never thought that Jiang Qingyue could dance. Jiang Qingyue looked at Lu Yin, and when their eyes met, she looked away. Oh. The dragon turtle raised its tail. Old man, my young master's dance isn't something you can watch. Shameless. Elder Chan laughed. I can avoid it. I'll let the Dao Lord watch. The dragon turtle's eyes widened. My young master won't dance for anyone. You're not worthy, right? He kept winking at Ghost Monkey. Ghost Monkey jumped up. Stupid turtle, what did you say? Who's not worthy? My seventh brother is the above heaven sect's Dao Lord, the master of the origin space. Even if the lightning lord of White Cloud City comes, you still have to greet him politely. If my young master says you're not worthy, then you're not worthy. My seventh brother is worthy. Not worthy. Worthy. Shut up. Jiang Qingyue shouted. He grabbed the dragon turtle and threw it out. She wasn't an idiot. How could she not see that these two fellows were working together to provoke her? However, she said, Brother Lu, don't tell anyone about what happened today. After saying that, she disappeared. Lu Yin was stunned. Was she going to dance? Elder Chan had not expected Jiang Qingyue to take his casual words seriously. He looked at Lu Yin. Who was this dance for? The dragon turtle returned and was excited. The young master is tempted. Ghost Monkey was excited. Seventh bro, you've struck gold. Lu Yin reacted and looked up at the lake. Some of the dancing girls had wings of light while others did not. This was good, as Jiang Qingyue would be easily exposed. She can really dance. It was hard to imagine that such a cold, sword-wielding girl could actually dance. She had such a gentle side to her, and Lu Yin was looking forward to it. A gust of wind blew from behind, carrying the white dress towards the lake in the sky. Lu Yin looked up, and the white dress danced in the wind like a fairy. He saw a different Jiang Qingyue. She had lost her decisiveness and now had a gentleness to her. She put down her sword and her long hair danced in the wind. It was as if she had become a different person. Jiang Qingyue danced into the lake, causing ripples. As her dance stretched out, the water sparkled like stars. It was beautiful and dreamy. Lu Yin was lost in thought, as if this was the first time he had seen Jiang Qingyue. On the sixth mainland, he had never paid attention to the scene where she had killed the corpse king with a sword. Jiang Qingyue was very beautiful, and her beauty was not only in her appearance, but also in her contradictory beauty. Men could enter the battlefield with swords, and women could enter the imperial court with swords. Women could also wield swords to kill and dance to the clouds. Lu Yin had never seen Jiang Qingyue like this before. She displayed her gentleness, her absolute beauty, and her unforgettable beauty. Countless voices entered Lu Yin's ears, and all eyes were drawn to Jiang Qingyue. She had a dance style that was different from this space-time, and her beauty was not inferior to anyone else's. At this moment she became the most beautiful scenery on the lake. Lu Yin looked at the lake and all the light in front of him disappeared. Only Jiang Qingyue remained. Sound, light, and complicated thoughts were all replaced by this dance. It was as if only Lu Yin and Jiang Qingyue remained in this world. Within the lake, Jiang Qingyue turned into light, becoming the goddess of countless people. Beautiful moments were always short-lived. Lu Yin did not know how long Jiang Qingyue had danced for, but when he came back to his senses she was already beside him. She was still as cold as ever, wielding her sword. She was a completely different person from the one who had just danced. Lu Yin stared at her in a daze. Jiang Qingyue's face was slightly red and she looked a little tired. When she saw Lu Yin looking at her, she was puzzled. "What are you looking at?" Lu Yin was stunned and then he coughed. "You danced really well." Jiang Qingyue was expressionless as she took a sip from her teacup. Her coldness and gentleness were flawless. The ghost monkey suddenly squealed, "Beautiful." This squeal startled everyone. Lu Yin gritted his teeth, wanting to hit the monkey. "She's too beautiful, an eternal goddess. Damn turtle, I envy you for having such a beautiful young master." The ghost monkey was jealous. The dragon turtle was pleased. "Of course, the young master is the most beautiful person in the universe." Jiang Qingyue frowned. "Shut up or I'll chase you back to White Cloud City." Chapter 3006. Elder Chan praised, "Countless people in the Divine Kingdom won't be able to sleep with just one dance." He then glanced at Lu Yin. Lu Yin didn't say anything and just drank his tea. Zhao Ran was excited. "I want to dance too." Lu Yin rolled his eyes. "Come on, don't forget yourself in the middle of the dance." Zhao Ran felt wronged. On this day, Jiang Qingyue brought amazement to the Divine Kingdom. However, this was the Divine Kingdom after all, and there were too many girls preparing for the Day of God prayer. Jiang Qingyue's amazement was quickly suppressed. Lu Yin admitted that Jiang Qingyue's dance was beautiful, but there were also girls who could rival her. Not everyone could withstand the flirtatious dance. However, the more he looked at the girls dancing, the more he recalled Jiang Qingyue's dance. The way he looked at Jiang Qingyue was different from before. Jiang Qingyue was still cold and indifferent. She would wipe her sword from time to time like a tomboy. Who would have thought that she had such a gentle side? How is it? The young lord is beautiful, isn't she?" The dragon turtle laughed strangely. Lu Yin retracted his gaze and looked at the lake. There were fewer and fewer girls dancing. The Day of God prayer was getting closer. The dragon turtle came over. The young lord's mother is called Lu Pianran, known as the rain god of light. She used to be one of the most beautiful girls in our kingdom. The young lord inherited the rain god's appearance. Her dance was also taught by the matriarch. Other than the old master, you are the first to see the young lord dance. Even young Lord Chen hasn't seen it before. I didn't expect the young lord to be willing to dance. Lu Yin was moved. Even Jiang Chen hasn't seen it before. The dragon turtle shook his head. No, young Lord Chen has been complaining about it for a long time. Alright, Qingyue has you protecting her. Who is protecting Jiang Chen? Lu Yin suddenly asked. The dragon turtle said, "No one. We have a saying, raise a son in poverty and raise a daughter in wealth." The old master used this saying to the extreme. Young Lord Chen can do whatever he wants, but the young lord can't. He has to report to the old master wherever he goes. The old master is very worried. Lu Yin found it funny. He would probably do the same when he had children in the future. Days passed by, the number of girls dancing in the lake decreased. When the last girl left, the lake returned to its peaceful state. There were still a few days before the Day of God prayer. The Day of Prayer to the Gods was the biggest event in the Divine Government Nation, and it gathered people from all over the Divine Government Nation. Lu Yin and the others could feel that the tolerance of the Divine Government Nation did not diminish just because there were so many people present. Even though they had seen some disputes over the past few days, the area that they could control was so small that it was as if there were no disputes at all. "I'm getting more and more used to this feeling," Elder Chan said as he looked at the bustling crowd below. Jiang Qingyue's tone was cold. "These people are not suited for the cultivation of killing. That's why outsiders are not allowed to enter the Divine Kingdom. This was a pure land and it would be good to maintain it forever. However, once the door to this pure land was broken, what awaited these people would be unimaginable despair. Any living creature should have a sense of danger and not be protected all the time. This was especially true for humans. This goddess was so confident that she could protect these people. After waiting for a few days, the day of prayer finally arrived. On this day, the Divine Kingdom was silent. Countless people looked up at the sky. Even those who were not in the Divine Realm were looking in the direction of the Divine Realm. No one spoke. They were all waiting for the goddess to appear. Lu Yin and the others did not speak either. They looked up at the sky. The goddess had been waiting for a long time. The scene that they encountered when they first entered the divine government nation was still difficult to forget. Lu Yin and the others tried not to use their powers here. Lu Yin did not even open his third eye. He knew very well how powerful those who were recognized by time and space were. The reason why he could find Yu Huo was because of that feeling. It was a fish, but it made him feel inexplicably uncomfortable. This was the horror of being recognized by time and space. If there was anything wrong, the goddess would be able to discover it. God, descend. God, descend. God, descend. At the same time, countless people shouted. Their voices were so loud that they penetrated the sky and caused ripples on the lake. The voices formed visible waves of air and turned into endless prayers. A girl with a purple veil on her face was welcomed. The girl's figure was slim and her bare feet stepped on the lake. Under everyone's gaze, she slowly flew up and opened her arms as if she was praying to the gods. This was a dance unique to the goddess. It was not complicated, but in the divine government nation, only the goddess was qualified to perform it. The dance was filled with prayers to the endless unknown. As the goddess dance unfolded, the day of God prayer reached its climax. At this moment, everyone only had eyes for the goddess and her beautiful figure, which was as beautiful as a painting. Lu Yin's eyes flickered. This scene was indeed beautiful. If Jiang Qingyue's dance was resplendent and filled with tenderness, then the goddess' dance was high and mighty. It was as if she was welcoming the gods and blessing the people. The hearts of everyone in the divine government nation were united at this moment, and they were offering everything to the goddess. This was terrifying. Lu Yin had been recognized by the primordial space, and he had been able to banish the scales and weaken external forces with a single word. He had been worshipped by countless people in the primordial space, but he could not do what the goddess had done. She was not only the faith of the divine government nation, but also the continuation of their lives. Lu Yin finally understood. The reason why the divine kingdom could be so tolerant was because of this faith that was willing to sacrifice everything as well as the guidance of the goddess. An entire divine government nation could be made up of countless people, but it could also be made up of a single person. The goddess was the divine government nation and the divine government nation was the goddess. It felt as if the divine government nation was the goddess' ancestral world. The goddess dance in the lake stirred up the entire divine government nation. Countless people cheered and offered their prayers to the goddess. Finally, the goddess spun in the lake, and the entire lake formed a whirlpool with her at the center. The rainwater fell down and dripped onto everyone's bodies. Lu Yin raised his hand and the rainwater dripped onto his palm. It was warm as if the goddess was breathing and there was also a strange fragrance. Everyone welcomed the rain to their heart's content, feeling the blessing of the goddess. Within the lake, the goddess' gaze remained calm, but when the rainwater fell onto Lu Yin, her expression suddenly changed and her gaze fell onto him. Lu Yin looked up and locked gazes with the goddess. Their gazes met and they both knew that the other had discovered them. Lu Yin narrowed his eyes. Had he been discovered? Was it the rainwater? Get ready to retreat at any time, Lu Yin reminded them. Elder Chan and Jiang Qingyue gathered and looked up warily. The goddess spun continuously, her gaze always on Lu Yin's group. This outsider was indeed not dead. He had escaped her detection and blocked her first attack. He was very strong. However, he was not one of those monsters. He was a human like them. The rain was still falling, watering the earth and clouds of the godly land. This rain lasted for 3 days. Dang Lake, the lake completely turned into rainwater and light illuminated the land. Flowers bloomed in the divine government, welcoming new life. Everyone in the divine government nation knelt down. Thank you for your blessing, goddess. Thank you for your blessing, goddess. Thank you for your blessing, goddess. Lu Yin looked up at the sky. The goddess stood there quietly and then her figure flashed and disappeared. He's here. Lu Yin suddenly turned around and saw the goddess appear not far away. Elder Chan and Jiang Qingyue were on high alert. The goddess' gaze swept across them and finally landed on Lu Yin. Outsider, why have you come to the divine government nation? The goddess' voice was very soft, clear and clean. Lu Yin tried to be as gentle as possible. I came here by accident. I apologize if I have disturbed you. The goddess met Lu Yin's gaze. Since you are a guest, you should be invited in by the host. You are unwelcome guests. Lu Yin said indifferently, if we were unwelcome guests, how could the day of God's prayer be so peaceful? The goddess' gaze was not as vicious as when she had attacked. Instead, it was filled with gentleness. Even though her tone was cold, her gaze was still gentle, and she was as tolerant as the divine government nation. Whether it is peaceful or not is not up to you. It is up to me. Are you saying that you have the confidence to suppress us? Elder Chan asked. The goddess said, kill us. These two simple people caused Jiang Qinyue and Elder Chan's expressions to change. This girl looked young, but she was decisive enough. Lu Yin did not mind. We've been in this nation for a while and everyone has been friendly to us. I didn't expect the first unfriendly one to be the goddess who brought this nation such a beautiful vision. How ironic. The goddess looked at Lu Yin. Their beauty comes from me. It seems like you know that the outside world is not peaceful, Lu Yin said. The goddess' tone was indifferent. It's fine as long as the divine government nation is peaceful. Lu Yin smiled. You didn't attack us when you saw us, so you must have sensed our goodwill. We're not evil guests and we're just uninvited guests at most. Your Excellency, can you formally invite us to the divine kingdom now? The goddess looked at Lu Yin, Elder Chan, Jiang Qinyue, and then Zhao Ran the dragon turtle and Lu Yin's shadow. The divine government nation welcomes you. The atmosphere relaxed. The goddess was certain that Lu Yin and the others had no ill intentions and she relaxed. After all, they were people who could withstand her attacks, and even if they attacked, the damage they could cause to the divine government nation would be unimaginable. Now that they had entered, this was the only way. Elder Chan and the others also relaxed. The first time they had been ambushed, they had left a deep impression on them and they had been wary of this goddess. Since the goddess had issued an invitation, Lu Yin and the others did not stand on ceremony. Under the lead of the goddess, they toured the divine realm and saw the beautiful scenery of the realm. The beauty of the foreign realm was refreshing, and Lu Yin was especially shocked when he saw the place where the goddess lived in the distance. It wasn't that the goddess' residence was spectacular, as no matter how spectacular it was, it couldn't compare to the above heaven. Instead, it was that he saw a familiar creature outside her residence, the Akalanatha mammoth. Why was the Akalanatha elephant here? The 4 elephants supported the residence of the goddess. It was located at the center of the divine realm above the divine kingdom. Lu Yin was very sure that one of the 4 elephants was the Akalanatha elephant. He had seen it the first time he had visualized it. Follow the official account, author Drifting with the Wind, August 15th. Ancestral Chin Biography. Thank you for your support, thank you. Chapter 3007. Lady Goddess, can we go up and take a look? Elder Chan asked. The goddess replied, my apologies, but my residence is inconvenient. Also, there's nothing worth visiting. It's just an ordinary residence. What are those 4 elephants? Lu Yin asked. The goddess replied, the power of the 4 elephants. They are the guardians of my divine kingdom. Any foreign enemy will have to face the attacks of the 4 elephants. Lu Yin's interest was piqued. Can you introduce them to me? If they can protect the divine kingdom, they must be powerful powerhouses. Lu Yin's tone was especially respectful when he mentioned the 4 elephants, which made the goddess feel comfortable. She looked at the 4 elephants. The 4 elephants of my divine kingdom are the impeccable elephant, the gate of law elephant, the broken virtue elephant, and the immovable heavenly king elephant. The impeccable elephant specializes in killing and suppresses all enemies. The gate of law elephant can see through the void. The broken virtue elephant eliminates all worries. The immovable heavenly king elephant is unshakable. It is precisely because of the 4 elephants that my divine kingdom can be peaceful and deal with all foreign enemies. Elder Chan was puzzled. The immovable heavenly king elephant? Wasn't this the Lu family's side family visualization? He looked at Lu Yin in confusion. Lu Yin looked straight ahead. Amazing. If I'm not wrong, the one who suppressed us the first time was the impeccable elephant, right? The goddess did not answer. Are the main bodies of the 4 elephants in the divine kingdom? Can we pay them a visit? Lu Yin asked again. The goddess looked at Lu Yin. The 4 elephants do not receive guests. Lu Yin felt that it was a pity. Then forget it. Where did you all come from? And where are you going? The goddess asked. She had not asked about Lu Yin's group for the past few days, and this was the first time she had asked about their origins. Lu Yin did not hide anything and told her that they were from the 6 Paths gang. Since White Cloud City did not know about the Divine Kingdom, It was likely that the Divine Kingdom did not know about White Cloud City and the Six Paths Gang. There were so many parallel universes and the possibility of them intersecting was not high. As expected, the goddess did not know about the Six Paths Gang. However, when Lu Yin mentioned the Eternals, her expression changed. Your enemy is also the Eternals? Lu Yin was surprised. You know about them? The goddess's expression changed for the first time. Our enemy is called the Eternals. Lu Yin and the others exchanged glances. Just how many parallel universes had the Eternals come into contact with? Since they had made the Divine Dwelling Nation their enemy, it meant that there might be even more parallel universes that were the enemies of the Eternals. It was no wonder that the Eternals did not attack the Six-Party Society despite having so many experts. It was not that they did not want to, but that they could not. They had too many enemies. Of course, there might be other reasons. Tell me in detail about your encounter with the Eternals, the goddess said solemnly. Lu Yin also wanted to know who the Divine Kingdom's enemy was. Both sides verified with each other. In the end, they discovered that neither of them had heard of the other party's encounter with the Eternals. However, they were both sure that the Eternals they had encountered were the ones the other party had encountered. This was because they were both corpse kings and both used divine power. 7 sky gods? I've never heard of it, the goddess said. Lu Yin added, your biggest enemy is called Di Qiong. We have never heard of it either. This was very bad news as Lu Yin had already experienced how powerful the Divine Estate Kingdom was. Any powerful enemy that could cause the Divine Estate Kingdom to feel apprehensive would definitely be a powerhouse who had comprehended the laws of the sequence. Although there was only one such powerhouse, the Divine Lady was still so apprehensive. He must be at the level of the 7 sky gods. This reminded Lu Yin of the 3 masters and 6 boundless. Perhaps Di Qiong was one of the 3 masters and 6 boundless. The Divine Lady's words made Lu Yin and the others feel apprehensive, but they were already mentally prepared. After all, they already knew about the 3 masters and 6 boundless. However, Lu Yin's words shocked the Divine Lady. This was because the 6-party association was not facing 1 or 2 powerful enemies, but rather the 7 sky gods, who had comprehended the laws of the sequence. She could imagine that the 6-party association was an alliance formed by many powerful spacetime factions. However, such an alliance was still being suppressed by the Eternals. Was the Divine Estate Kingdom really safe? Who else is your enemy besides Di Qiong? Lu Yin hoped to learn some familiar names from the Divine Lady. If there were any Eternals he was familiar with, it would at least show that they were not unfathomable. However, the Divine Lady shook her head. No, there is only Di Qiong. You just said that he is the biggest enemy. We have many enemies, but the Eternals are the biggest. We know that Di Qiong is not the only powerhouse among the Eternals. However, from the beginning to the end, Di Qiong was the only one who attacked us. How powerful is this Di Qiong? Elder Chan asked. The Divine Lady pondered for a moment. I can only rely on the power of the 4 symbols to barely resist him. Every time I encounter him, his resistance to the power of the 4 symbols increases. Perhaps after a few years, the power of the 4 symbols will not be able to stop him. Elder Chan could not help but ask, if that is the case, have you not thought of other ways to deal with Di Qiong? For example, searching for the human civilization. The Divine Lady said calmly, we can leave. There is no need to deal with him. Lu Yin and the rest did not expect this answer. Their attitude towards the Eternals had always been to destroy them, not to run away. The Divine Estate Kingdom was so powerful that before the Lu family's return, even the Celestial Sect could not take it down. This was something that Lu Yin could not understand. Perhaps this was the mindset that the Divine Lady had brought to this kingdom. They were tolerant of each other, not only of their own people but also of their enemies. The Divine Lady thought that it was normal to run away when you could not defeat them. This mindset was completely different from Lu Yin and the rest. It was not wrong, but everyone's choice was different. Lu Yin believed that although the Divine Estate Kingdom was peaceful, this peace could easily lead to an abyss of destruction. Once the kingdom was unable to expel external enemies, and if something happened to the Divine Lady, the entire kingdom would collapse. Everyone wanted to stay in the Divine Estate Kingdom and live a carefree life. However, such a life required someone to stand in front of them. The Divine Lady was definitely not a qualified protector. Her way of doing things was very straightforward. Expel outsiders regardless of whether they were friends or foes, and if they could not defeat them they would run away. This was probably the mindset of the entire Divine Estate Kingdom. There would be no end to the battle of ideals, and Lu Yin had no intention of debating with the Divine Lady. He was just a passerby. Lu Yin and the rest had thought that the Divine Lady would at most show them around and then let them leave. No matter how they looked at it, the Divine Lady did not seem to be a hospitable person. However, unexpectedly, the Divine Lady asked them to stay for a few more days. Perhaps it was just a polite remark, but Lu Yin and the rest took it seriously. Lu Yin asked the Divine Lady if there were parallel universes with different time flows. The reason why they had come to the Divine Estate Kingdom was because of the compass, so this kingdom might have a similar spacetime. The Divine Lady happily told Lu Yin that this spacetime could be connected to parallel universes with different time flows, and there was more than one. This was something that the Divine Estate Kingdom had accumulated over many years. Not only that, but she also generously allowed Lu Yin to enter and cultivate. The contrast in her attitude made Lu Yin feel uncomfortable, and he wondered if she was scheming something. She was scheming. But who cares? Being able to enter a spacetime with different time flows to cultivate was the most important thing. As for danger, even with the help of the four divinities, this Divine Lady would not be able to defeat him in a short period of time. Even if the four divinities appeared, it would be the same. Lu Yin quickly rode the caged WRM and was led by the Divine Lady to a connected parallel universe. This was one of the parallel universes that the Divine Estate Kingdom controlled with different time flows. The Divine Estate Kingdom used this place for both cultivation and daily life, but it did not seem to be very effective. There was not even a single progenitor in the entire Divine Estate Kingdom. If the Divine Lady had not been recognized by this spacetime and could borrow the power of the four divinities, any progenitor realm corpse king would have been able to collapse this spacetime, let alone Di Qiong. This parallel universe was 36 times faster than the Genesis space, and it was a very valuable spacetime. As for how to be recognized by this spacetime, Lu Yin had to study it. Being recognized by this spacetime was different from being the master of spacetime. He was the master of the Genesis space and was recognized by the Genesis space's will. He could eliminate anyone in the Genesis space and make them the enemy of the Genesis space. The Divine Lady was the same in the Divine Estate Kingdom, so she could borrow the power of the four divinities. Being recognized by this spacetime could be understood as not being rejected by it. Any foreign creatures would be rejected by the other spacetime unless they were recognized. Therefore, even if this parallel universe belonged to the Divine Lady and the will recognized the Divine Lady, it did not affect Lu Yin's recognition. The main thing was that it took time. 20 years later, Lu Yin was finally recognized by this spacetime and increased the time of the flashback by 36 seconds. Only half a year had passed in the Divine Estate Kingdom. When Lu Yin and the others returned to the Divine Estate Kingdom, he wanted to shamelessly ask the Divine Lady to borrow a parallel universe with a different time flow to cultivate. Before he could say anything, the Divine Lady said, "Is it okay now? Actually, if you want to cultivate, you can cultivate in there. It doesn't matter if it's 100 years or 1,000 years." Lu Yin looked at the Divine Lady in a daze. This was the problem. Even a fool like the caged WRM could see that there was a problem. "That spacetime can't help me anymore," Lu Yin said. The Divine Lady was puzzled. It was normal for cultivators to cultivate in seclusion for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. Even with the help of a parallel universe with a different time flow, it should not be so fast. Her plan was simple. The Divine Estate Kingdom was threatened by Di Qiong, so she wanted to keep Lu Yin and the others as long as possible until Di Qiong attacked the Divine Estate Kingdom. When the time came, she would join hands with Lu Yin and the others. It would be best if they could kill Di Qiong, but if they could not, they could at least make Di Qiong fear the Divine Estate Kingdom. However, Lu Yin's quick conclusion was beyond her expectations. In that case, she asked, "Do you want a parallel universe with a different time flow?" Lu Yin's face twitched. He thought to himself, if you had asked a few seconds later, I wouldn't have needed to ask. I would have just allowed you to do it. "I'm sorry." Lu Yin was humble. The ghost monkey looked at him with disdain. Jiang Qingyue's expression was strange. Although the Divine Lady's expression was calm and her gaze was gentle, she was obviously relieved. "It's okay. If you want to use it, just let me know. Since you're invited, the Divine Estate Kingdom will do its best to entertain you. I'll take you there." Lu Yin and the others looked at each other. They could vaguely guess the Divine Lady's plan and did not mind. They also wanted to see how powerful Di Qiong was and what his status was in the Eternal Tribe. Chapter 3008. Lu Yin and the rest did not ask when Di Qiong would come to the Divine Estate Nation. However, they could not wait here forever. Furthermore, the Divine Estate Nation had different time flows, and it was impossible for the parallel universes to be endless. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years passed. Lu Yin had stayed in the parallel universes for more than 100 years, but only 4 years had passed in the origin space. During these 4 years, Jiang Qingyue and the rest did not stay by Lu Yin's side completely. The parallel universes might not be of much help to them. This was especially true for Jiang Qingyue. She could go to the 5 spirit tribes to train at any time and did not care about the parallel universes at all. Compared to the parallel universes, she was more willing to spend time with the goddess. She was curious about the power of the 4 symbols. She knew that the Akalanatha elephant that Lu Yin had visualized was one of the 4 symbols. Elder Chan also stayed in the Divine Estate Nation. He had fulfilled his lifelong dream here, but he still had to see if this dream was right. Zhao Ran stayed by his side. The ghost monkey followed Elder Chan. Lu Yin did not need them to train beside him. Only the hellworm followed Lu Yin obediently. Besides Lu Yin, there was no one else who could suppress it. The goddess could, but if the goddess made a move on this stupid thing, it could escape. During this time, Lu Yin entered 5 parallel universes with different time flows. He did not expect the Divine Estate Nation to have so many parallel universes with different time flows. He was a little surprised, but this was better. The more the better. When Lu Yin obtained the recognition of the 6th parallel universe with a different flow of time and returned to the Divine Kingdom, the goddess hesitated for a long time before bringing Lu Yin to a new parallel universe. This parallel universe had a flow of time that was 110 times faster than the primordial space. This was the most exaggerated time flow that Lu Yin had seen so far. He looked at the goddess in surprise. The goddess did not look too good, even though she was wearing a thin veil. I obtained this through a battle in the Divine Estate Nation. You should cultivate slowly. Lu Yin could tell that she meant it. She wanted him to cultivate slowly. The slower the better. Thank you, Lu Yin said and entered the parallel universe. The goddess had a complicated look. This was the last parallel universe with different time flows that they had. If Di Qiong did not act after this person finished cultivating, she did not know how to make them stay. Although she had gotten along well with Jiang Qingyue in the past few years, the real leader of this group was this man, and he was also the strongest. The Divine Kingdom had never thought of asking for outside help, and the goddess felt that Lu Yin's arrival was the will of the heavens. Perhaps they would be able to help them, or perhaps they would not. Looking at the spacetime in front of him, he found that the flow of time was 110 times faster than that of the origin space. It was too exaggerated. It was 10 times faster than that of the Ice Spirit clan. In this spacetime, there were creatures that looked like pangolins everywhere. These creatures were covered in huge stone shells, and there were countless of them. This spacetime dimension was very small, and it was not even as big as Frostwave Weave. There were not many planets, but every planet was filled with these creatures. Lu Yin tried to understand these creatures, as they were the key to gaining the recognition of this spacetime. But after a few years, Lu Yin discovered to his exhaustion that these creatures had no desires. Aside from sleeping, they crawled from one planet to another. They were very strange. They didn't cultivate and they didn't have any power. They could only crawl through the air by relying on their body's breathing. Lu Yin also discovered that this breathing method had no value and was only suitable for these creatures. He already had a good understanding of these creatures, but the problem was, how could he gain the recognition of this spacetime? There was no way to start a fight with them. That was impossible. These creatures didn't even bother to look at him. Transferring foreign species? That was meaningless. Even if he completely exterminated these creatures, he wouldn't gain the recognition of this spacetime. It would be even more likely that he would be rejected. This was the situation that Lu Yin did not want to encounter. He would rather encounter a spacetime where only the fittest survived, a spacetime with undeveloped creatures, or even a spacetime with no living creatures, than to encounter such a spacetime. In his opinion, these creatures were just latrines. He had to go through them in order to gain the recognition of this spacetime, but they wouldn't give him away. In the end, Lu Yin decided to imitate them. He changed his appearance so that he looked exactly like these creatures. He then began to crawl with them, sleep with them, and head towards an unknown future that he didn't need to know about. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin looked back and sadly discovered that he had only crawled a few thousand kilometers. He gritted his teeth and continued. 110 times, which meant that he had gained 110 seconds, which was close to the time that he could use to look back. No matter what, it was worth it. After all, only a month had passed in the outside world. He just couldn't let Jiang Qingyue and the others see him, especially the ghost monkey. That damn monkey flattered him to his face, but he didn't know what to say behind his back. If he saw him like this, he would laugh at him for the rest of his life. Back in the Divine Kingdom, Elder Chan was leisurely drinking tea that Zhou Ran had brewed. He was surprised to find that her tea was actually starting to look better. "Girl, this tea of yours?" Zhou Ran was apprehensive. "Does it not taste good?" "Oh, it's just different from before." Elder Chan picked up his teacup and looked at the floating plankton inside. A first-timer would definitely not be able to bear it, but they were all used to it. Before coming to the Divine Kingdom, this girl's tea had been terrifying even to him, but now it was much gentler. Zhou Ran blinked. "I think that the tea I brewed in the past doesn't look that good." Elder Chan looked at her strangely. "You only realized that now?" Zhou Ran pursed her lips. "Really? You're still not sure?" Elder Chan asked. Zhou Ran shook her head and blinked at Elder Chan. Elder Chan was speechless. "It's okay. Just follow your heart. Do whatever you think is good." Zhou Ran looked at Elder Chan expectantly. "Then is it good?" Elder Chan laughed. "Of course it's good. The tea you brew is always good." Zhou Ran smiled happily. On the other side, Jiang Qingyue was allowed to enter the goddess residence half a year ago. She was the only one who was invited. After all, they were all girls, so there was no taboo. "It's hard for you to withstand this pressure. Do you really want to try?" The goddess asked Jiang Qingyue, who was standing opposite her with a sword in hand. Jiang Qingyue looked very serious. "Yes." The goddess praised her. "One day you will reach great heights." After she finished speaking, she did not move. A palm of light appeared above Jiang Qingyue's head and pressed down hard with terrifying pressure. It was the goddess who had borrowed the killing power of the Supreme Saint Elephant. Jiang Qingyue stabbed out with her sword. During this time she had often sparred with the goddess and felt the pressure. The killing power of the Supreme Saint Elephant and the rebirth image of broken virtue made her state of mind clear, so her strength continued to grow. With a bang, the sword flew out of her hand and pierced into the wall. The palm of light was about to reach Jiang Qingyue. It stopped when it was less than half a meter away. Jiang Qingyue gasped for breath. She had failed. This was her limit. This palm once killed an expert of the same realm as your Elder Chan. "It's normal that you can't withstand it," the goddess said. Jiang Qingyue raised her hand and the sword returned to her hand. "Couldn't withstand it? If she used her power she could break this palm, but it would be meaningless." "Rest for a while," the goddess said. Jiang Qingyue nodded. The Divine Manor country was a place where people could relax. However, if they were too relaxed, problems would arise. Jiang Qingyue and the others could see this clearly. The goddess must also know this, but this was her philosophy. That Brother Lu has cultivated for more than half a year. In his space-time it's almost 60 years. I wonder when he will come out. The goddess looked into the distance and said indifferently. Jiang Qingyue was also very curious. She heard from the goddess that this parallel space-time had 110 times. This was too tempting for Brother Lu. Ever since he came to the outer realm, all the parallel space-time he had experienced added up to less than this. "Qiwei, tell me more about the Six Directions Society," the goddess suddenly said. Jiang Qingyue nodded and slowly told the goddess about the situation of the Six Directions Society. In the blink of an eye, another half a year had passed in the Divine Manor country. On this day, Jiang Qingyue was enduring the pressure of the palm of light as usual. Suddenly, the goddess's expression changed. Oh no! Her figure flashed and entered her residence. The next moment, a terrifying power filled the surroundings. Endless sequence particles flew in one direction. Jiang Qingyue couldn't see the sequence particles, but with her power she could feel the destructive power. The goddess was borrowing the power of the four symbols. An outsider had entered. In the distant starry sky, a figure slowly appeared. He was wearing a black coat with fine patterns. His hands were in the pockets of his coat. His face was weathered and there was sparse stubble on his face. His eyes were lifeless and his hair was neither long nor short. It was messy and draped over his shoulders. The moment this person appeared, the goddess's expression changed. He was Di Qiong. Di Qiong stood quietly in the starry sky. He didn't move as if he was waiting for something. Soon, the palm of light appeared above his head. The goddess's voice sounded. Di Qiong, are you still not giving up? You can't enter. Di Qiong raised his head and looked at the palm of light. Little girl, you have been resisting generation after generation. How long can you last? How long can you live? The goddess's voice was unprecedentedly solemn. It was filled with killing intent. The palm of light slammed down and suppressed Di Qiong. Di Qiong raised his hand and collided with the palm of light. The entire divine manor country trembled, and even space-time swayed as it endured the collision of the two terrifying forces. Elder Chan stood up abruptly. What a powerful force. In the starry sky, endless sequence particles madly rushed into the palm of light. It was more than twice as powerful as when it had suppressed Lu Yin and the rest. The goddess had gone all out from the beginning. Every generation of goddesses had done the same. She couldn't afford to be careless. If she was careless, the divine kingdom would be gone. Di Qiong raised a hand to block the palm of light. The palm of light continued to merge with the sequence particles and pressed down. Di Qiong stood straight. He didn't retreat, but he didn't move forward either. Qingyue, help me. The goddess's voice sounded in Jiang Qingyue's ears. Jiang Qingyue had already rushed towards Lu Yin's spacetime. No matter what, they had to help the divine kingdom in this battle. Thank you. Desert dust is finished. Brother's tip, I'll give it to you, thank you. Chapter 3009. The divine lady's sudden outburst of power meant that she was under great pressure. If she could not bear the pressure, it would bring disaster to the divine kingdom. Although they did not agree with the atmosphere of the divine kingdom, they did not want to see it destroyed. Soon Jiang Qingyue entered Lu Yin's spacetime. Brother Lu. Her voice resounded through the spacetime. Lu Yin was awakened and looked up. Qingyue. He quickly recovered and ascended to the starry sky. What's wrong? Di Qiong is here, Jiang Qingyue replied. Lu Yin took a step forward and left the spacetime, heading towards the divine kingdom. The next moment he entered the divine kingdom and looked into the distance. What a terrifying aura. It was obscure and gloomy, but it made one's scalp tingle. Just as he was about to go forward, he stopped abruptly. The aura had disappeared. At the same time, the divine lady's eyes widened in surprise. Did he leave? Her face turned pale. Di Qiong was testing. Just like the last time, he was testing how long it would take to break through the power of the four symbols. Every time he attacked, he was one step closer to breaking through. What made the divine lady uneasy was that she did not know how many times Di Qiong would break through. Di Qiong knew, but she did not know. This was the most unsettling thing for her. Lu Yin went to the divine lady's residence and waited for her. Soon the divine lady walked out. She looked calm, but her eyes were no longer gentle. They were filled with confusion and uneasiness. Lu Yin looked at her. Di Qiong left so quickly. What's his motive? The divine lady told Lu Yin her guess. Lu Yin frowned. If that's the case, he will break through the power of the four symbols next time. When that happens, it will be the end of the divine kingdom. Jiang Qingyue, Elder Chan and the rest had arrived. Further away, a group of cultivators from the divine kingdom had arrived. The strongest among them was only a half-ancestor. It did not matter whether they came or not. The divine lady looked into the distance with a complicated expression. She had thought that Lu Yin and the rest could help when Di Qiong attacked, but Di Qiong had left so quickly. Was his test over? Do you want to lead the divine kingdom to destruction? Lu Yin suddenly asked. The divine lady looked at Lu Yin. We can leave. What if we can't? Or Di Qiong will catch up with us. Lu Yin suggested, join the Six Paths Association, and the Eternals won't be able to do anything to you. There's no need to try and convince me. I'll take my people to a safe place. We don't want to participate in the war. When the nest is overturned, no egg can remain unbroken. Elder Chan sighed. It was difficult to change the goddess ideals, and Lu Yin wanted to increase the number of experts in the Six Paths Society, but he could not force her. Everyone, please forgive us for not being able to entertain you any longer. The goddess apologized. Di Qiong had already been here, and it would be at least 100 years before he would make his next move. The divine kingdom would not allow Lu Yin and the others to stay for 100 years, and Lu Yin and the others would not stay for 100 years either. Since that was the case, It was better to let them leave while she thought of a way to find a new place. Jiang Qingyue could not help but say, "If you run away and Di Qiong finds you, you'll be finished. Don't say that it won't happen. The Eternals are not as simple as you think. Joining the Six-Party Society doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be joining the war. You're just seeking to protect yourself. Why are you so persistent? If you really can't, you can join my White Cloud City." The goddess shook her head and said resolutely, "My apologies, I must ask everyone to leave as soon as possible." Lu Yin stopped Jiang Qingyue from continuing. He tried to persuade her, "Your Excellency, I'll be able to cultivate the last spacetime in a few more months. Can you allow us to stay for a few more months?" The goddess nodded, "Sure. Thank you." The goddess had a good impression of Lu Yin and the others. When Di Qiong had attacked, Jiang Qingyue had gone to find Lu Yin before she could ask for help. Lu Yin had also appeared immediately to deal with Di Qiong. Regardless of whether or not he had attacked in the end, she would owe him this favor. Lu Yin returned to that spacetime once more. He had disguised himself as that creature for 100 years and was already somewhat numb to it. He tried once midway and was not accepted, so he continued. A few months in the Divine Kingdom was equivalent to a few decades in this spacetime. In the blink of an eye, a few decades had passed. Lu Yin followed this group of creatures and crawled into space. These creatures relied on themselves to move through space, while Lu Yin relied on his cultivation. He decided to give it a try. This time he did not feel any sense of danger. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. He had succeeded and he had been accepted by this spacetime. This was probably the most difficult spacetime to be accepted so far, and it had actually allowed him to disguise himself as that creature for more than 100 years. In the origin space he had not even cultivated for that long. It was difficult to be accepted by spacetime, and it was not easy to increase the time in which he looked back. In the Divine Kingdom, more than half a year had passed since Di Qiong had attacked. The goddess did not rush him. When Lu Yin came out, he led the group to bid farewell to the goddess. Before leaving, Lu Yin wanted to leave some external objects as the price for lending her the parallel spacetime, but the goddess did not accept it. "I lent you the parallel spacetime to cultivate because I wanted to borrow your strength to guard against Di Qiong. Whether or not I succeeded in the end, this is a deal," the goddess said bluntly. Lu Yin nodded. "In that case, I won't force you. However, for the sake of the Divine Kingdom, I think you need to leave a backup plan." The goddess was puzzled. "Send someone to follow us to the Six Direction Guild. If you are in danger or Di Qiong catches up to you after escaping, you can use this coordinate to head to the Six Direction Guild," Lu Yin said. The goddess was not stupid. Although she was unwilling to get close to the Six Direction Guild due to her beliefs, it was always good to leave a backup plan. Lu Yin and the rest rode on the prison dragon and brought along a cultivator who had reached the level of a demi-ancestor from the Divine Kingdom. They tore through the void and returned to the Eternal Kingdom. Before leaving, Jiang Qingyue could not help but say, "I hope we can meet again in the future." They had been in the Divine Kingdom for almost 6 years, and Jiang Qingyue and the goddess had interacted the most. They had developed feelings for each other. The goddess had a complicated look in her eyes. "I hope so." The prison dragon rushed into the void crack and arrived at the Eternal Kingdom in an instant. The cultivator from the Divine Kingdom looked at the death aura below the Eternal Kingdom in amazement. He felt a chill run down his spine. This kind of power was unimaginable. Lu Yin quickly asked him to leave his aura on the coordinates. Seeing him leave, the Divine Kingdom finally came to an end. "What do you think about the Akalanatha Heavenly King?" Jiang Qingyue asked. Lu Yin said, "How much do you know about the four symbols?" Jiang Qingyue recalled, "The four symbols are the guardian forces of the Divine Kingdom. They have existed since the establishment of the Divine Kingdom a long time ago. Every goddess has a special ability to borrow the power of the four symbols to protect the Divine Kingdom. That's all." "It means that the four symbols have never changed," Elder Chan said. Jiang Qingyue's eyes flashed as she looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin put his hands behind his back. "Ancestor Lu Yuan once caught a mount, the Akalanatha Heavenly King. If I'm not wrong, the Divine Kingdom has already lost the Akalanatha Heavenly King. If the Akalanatha Heavenly King can still stop Di Qiong, the creator of the Divine Kingdom is definitely not someone like the goddess. The goddess is just borrowing the power left behind." "What about the Akalanatha Heavenly King? Where is it?" The dragon turtle was curious. Lu Yin shook his head. The ancestor did not mention it. There is no Akalanatha heavenly king in Lu Tianjing. I'll go back and ask. Jiang Qingyue's tone was heavy. If the Akalanatha heavenly king can return to the divine kingdom, the goddess might be able to stop Diqiong. Maybe. We gave the divine kingdom a way out. It's up to the goddess to use it. There's no need to be emotional, Lu Yin said. He then led everyone to the above heaven sect while he went to Lu Tianjing. In Lu Tianjing, Lu Yin met Lu Tianyi. Ancestor Lu Yuan was still in seclusion. Akalanatha heavenly king? Why are you suddenly asking about it? Lu Tianyi was puzzled. Lu Yin told him what had happened in the divine kingdom. Lu Tianyi was surprised. There's such a thing? The universe has indeed given birth to all kinds of civilizations that allow humans to tolerate each other. Such a country seems beautiful, but it's even more dangerous. As for the Akalanatha heavenly king, Lu Tianyi was silent for a moment. When the second continent was destroyed, the zombie god wanted to destroy the fifth continent as well. The Akalanatha heavenly king knocked the zombie god away and was buried with the second continent. The Akalanatha heavenly king is dead. Lu Yin was shocked. Lu Tianyi sighed. During the battle that destroyed the second continent, the ancestor was left with an injury that could never be healed. That is why he has been in hibernation. In that battle, the second continent was wiped out. The Milky Way Sword Emperor died right in front of me in the 9 mountains and 8 seas. He didn't even have the chance to enter the burial garden. The Mavis family owes us too much, which is why they became our money bag. If it wasn't for us, the Mavis family would have been wiped out long ago. The death of the Akalanatha heavenly king is an eternal pain in the ancestor's heart. Lu Yin did not understand. If the Akalanatha heavenly king is dead, then why can the Lu family still visualize it? Lu Tianyi looked at Lu Yin. Visualization is a form of faith. The sixth mainland was tempted by the Eternals, and their cultivation path went astray. They cultivated a reflection which can indeed increase their strength for a short period of time. However, once the person being reflected dies, the reflection will cease to exist. This is the sixth mainland's cultivation flaw, and it's the most fatal one. Their faith will crumble along with the reflection, but visualization is different. Faith comes into existence. This is visualization. Lu Yin understood that the Eternals had not only given the sixth mainland the power of the reflection so that they could deal with the fifth mainland, but also to destroy the faith of the sixth mainland's cultivators. If a person didn't have faith, how could he become an expert? This was destroying the sixth mainland's cultivation foundation, and at the same time, it was also draining the fifth mainland's strength. This was how the Eternals operated. You were right not to tell that divine lady about the Akalanatha heavenly king. Once she learns that the Akalanatha heavenly king is dead, her faith might not be able to be preserved. The reason why she can borrow the power of the four beasts is because she has been acknowledged by the space-time will, and it is also a form of faith that is similar to visualization. Once her faith crumbles, the divine kingdom will also crumble. Furthermore, once they learn that the Akalanatha heavenly king died here, we don't know what the divine kingdom's attitude towards us will be, Lu Tianyi said. Lu Yin had considered this point, which was why he had not said anything. It would be troublesome if the divine kingdom became an enemy. Thank you. Desert Dust, brother's reward will be given to you. Thank you. Follow the public account, Scattered Drifting Wind. Tomorrow I'll release the legacy of Progenitor Qin on the public account. Thank you for your support. Chapter 30:10. Although the Akalanatha celestial king mammoth was dead, the divine kingdom still had 3 mammoths. They were all sequence low realm powerhouses, and even if they won, the above heaven would consume a lot of resources. Although only 10 years have passed since your trip to the Outlands, it's been hundreds of years for you. How is it? How are your gains? Lu Tianyi asked. Lu Yin sighed. Not bad. I have a new path. I don't know what will happen if I continue down it. Lu Tianyi sighed. Since ancient times, no one can surpass you in terms of talent. Since you've decided on your path, then go ahead. You don't need to worry about the above heaven. We will protect it well. Lu Yin nodded. I understand. Thank you, ancestor. 10 years' time was too short for a cultivator. The Eternals were still the same, and the endless battlefield was already under the control of the Six Direction Society. The war had been completely suppressed outside of the zone of disaster, and they could attack at any time. The Grand Empyreans would rather cultivate and survive than fight to the death with the Eternals. However, Lu Yin's prestige in the Six Directions Society was no less than that of the Grand Empyreans. His will was to attack and wage war, and he would do his best to beat the Eternals until they could no longer raise their heads. He had already seen the Eternals' bottom line. Although they were in despair, it was not impossible to defeat them. Back then, the above heaven had also been undefeatable to the Eternals. In the end, they had still managed to destroy continent after continent. This was Lu Yin's confidence. The current Six Direction Society, White Cloud City, the wills of past powerhouses, and Burial Garden would eventually gather together to fight against the Eternals. The Thunder Lord had once said that attacking the zone of disaster was only to die. The desolate ancestor wanted to use himself to pave the way to the Eternals. Powerhouses were walking in front of him, so what was there to be afraid of? Humans had strong and unyielding beliefs. After returning from Lu Tianjing, Lu Yin met with Wang Wen and Wei Rong. They still had not thought of a way to safely return Yi Bo to the zone of disaster. The best method was to have the Eternals go to the Eternal Kingdom to rescue him, but the Eternals did not have the ability to do so. The only true God had attacked several times, and his seclusion had been prolonged. The 7 sky gods had died one after another, and the remaining powerhouses would not be able to act so easily. If they acted, they might not be saved but disaster. For the Eternals to take action again meant that the other zones of calamity were involved. Soon, Lu Yin's group was about to set off once again. His flowing light retrospect's duration had increased, and Lu Yin was increasingly anxious to increase the time. He seemed to have found the path that flowing light should take. This path was something that he had thought of when he had transformed into a creature that resembled a pangolin and crawled for more than 100 years. It was still very vague, but he had a direction. By the way, I have something to report to Daoist Master. Elder Gong failed in his ancestor breakthrough and his life is in danger, Wei Rong said as he watched Lu Yin and the others leave. Lu Yin was stunned and he asked Jiang Qingyue and the others to wait while he headed towards the Neoverse. Although Elder Gong was not as close to Lu Yin as Big Sis and the others, he was still an elder who had protected him. Even if it was because of the serious art, Lu Yin had indeed helped him on several occasions. Now that he had failed to break through into the ancestral soul realm, his life was in danger. He ought to go and take a look. Not long after, Lu Yin arrived at the Sirius sect in the Neoverse. The atmosphere in the Sirius sect was heavy at this moment. A group of disciples knelt within the sect with sorrowful expressions. The entire Sirius sect was shrouded in gloom. Sirius sect Master Yuan Qiong, Legacy Elder Yuan Shou, Secret Arts Elder Yuan Ku, and the others were all standing at the foot of the mountain where Elder Gong had secluded himself to drink tea. Only 2 people had entered the mountain and were serving Elder Gong. One was Elder Zhou Xian and the other was Qiu Shi. Lu Yin arrived. Elder Zhou Xian and Qiu Shi bowed together. The current Lu Yin was no longer the person they had once known, so it was only right for them to bow. Elder Gong leaned against a large tree and said in a weak voice, "Daoist Master, forgive me for not being able to stand up and bow." Lu Yin waved a hand and Elder Zhou Xian and Qiu Shi bowed once more before leaving. He sat down across from Elder Gong and asked, "How did you fail?" Elder Gong replied bitterly, "I delayed it for too long. I wanted to break through but I didn't dare to. When I tried to break through, a flaw appeared in my mental state and I was unable to succeed." Lu Yin poured tea for Elder Gong and passed it to him. Elder Gong accepted it. "Thank you, Daoist Master." Lu Yin retracted his gaze and looked into the distance. All he could see were Sirius sect disciples kneeling on the ground. The entire Sirius sect had never been so sad before. Even when the Eternals had invaded the 5th mainland and forced the Sirius sect to relocate, it had not been like this. Elder Gong would forever be the pillar of support for Sirius sect. It was precisely because of Elder Gong's existence that the Sirius sect had been able to prosper. But now their future was uncertain. "Daoist Master, I didn't expect you to come. You must have been in seclusion," Elder Gong said. Lu Yin replied indifferently, "I just came out of seclusion and heard about this, so I came. Sirius sect cannot do without you. If you want to live, I have a way." Elder Gong shook his head bitterly. "I've lived for too long and I'm tired. Ordinary half-martial ancestors rarely experience mortal life, but I'm different. I've lived both as a half-martial ancestor and as a mortal. Now that my life has come to an end, I should leave. This is in accordance with the universe's laws." Elder Gong's so-called universe's laws were different from the sequence laws, just like how mortals understood reincarnation. Lu Yin did not try to persuade him any further. I won't let Sirius sect weaken. When did Elder Zhou Xian become a half-martial ancestor? Right after I failed. Lu Yin was stunned and then he laughed. I thought that he was afraid of death. I never expected that there would be a day when he would dare to risk his life. Sirius sect needs a half-martial ancestor to oversee it. Elder Gong laughed. He could leave without worry because Elder Zhou Xian had become a half-martial ancestor. The Sirius sect's origin item had already been handed over to Elder Zhou Xian. Lu Yin would not ask about this as he did not care about the item. If he needed it, the Astral Tree Dominator Realm would have it. The Astral Tree Dominator Realm had already announced to the public that they would be holding a competition to obtain the origin item. They would search for cultivators with extraordinary talent and give them the origin item. If they used it, it would be called the origin item. If they did not use it, it would just be a piece of trash. With Zhou Xian as a half-martial ancestor and Qiu Shi as a disciple, I can die without regrets. Elder Gong sighed as his skin turned gray. Lu Yin looked at him. Sirius sect's greatest regret is the serious art. Don't worry, when I become a half-martial ancestor, I will definitely leave it to Sirius sect. Elder Gong coughed. Thank you, Pathmaster. There's one more thing that I should tell you. Lu Yin muttered to himself. I met Progenitor Qin. Elder Gong's eyes widened as he looked at Lu Yin in shock. You met Progenitor Qin? Lu Yin nodded. In the burial garden. Elder Gong laughed. I knew it. I knew that Progenitor Qin wouldn't die so easily. He's still alive. He's still alive. Lu Yin did not know how Sirius sect had inherited Progenitor Qin's power, but seeing Elder Gong like this, he had fulfilled his dying wish. The sect and his wish had been fulfilled. Elder Gong could die without regrets. Lu Yin stood up and left. Once he left, they would never meet again. In life, there were too many people who left forever. Sometimes, one would not even know that meeting with some people would be an eternal farewell. Now that Elder Gong was able to bid farewell to him, both Elder Gong and Lu Yin felt lucky. One day Lu Yin would also leave this world and he did not know who would be bidding him farewell. Not long after Lu Yin left, Elder Gong passed away amidst his laughter. The Sirius sect mourned. The death of a half-martial ancestor was not a big deal to the current Fifth Mainland, and it did not cause much of a commotion. Even if Elder Gong had once been one of the 7 half-martial ancestors who had protected the Fifth Mainland's human domain, Wei Rong had not even thought of telling Lu Yin about Elder Zhou Xian's breakthrough. This universe had truly changed. Lu Yin began his journey once again. Every journey was filled with unknowns, and this made him look forward to it even more. Under the guidance of the compass, Lu Yin found a parallel universe with a different flow of time. Although it was only 7 times faster, it was better than nothing. However, when he confirmed that it would take a long time for him to be recognized by this universe, he decisively gave up. The benefits were not proportional to the effort, so there was no point in continuing his search. A year quickly passed in the Inception space. During this time, Lu Yin's lightstream flashback had only increased by 12 seconds, which was very little. There was no helping it as this journey had not been very smooth. The parallel universes that he had found with different flows of time were all mediocre. The only thing that surprised Lu Yin was Zhao Ran's tea, which was becoming more and more beautiful. Although it was still a long way from being able to produce normal tea leaves, it was already developing in that direction. This was not a good thing. The stranger Zhao Ran's tea was, the more it resembled Zhao Ran. If the tea suddenly became beautiful, would it still be Zhao Ran? Lu Yin specifically instructed Elder Chan to keep an eye on Zhao Ran, as he did not know who she was. The ghost monkey was getting closer and closer to breaking through to Progenitor Realm. More accurately, it was getting closer and closer to transforming into a new progenitor Wuxiang. However, it did not dare to do so as the 2 people who had broken through to Progenitor Realm had been unlucky. One had been turned into a thread and the other had died. The monkey felt that breaking through to Progenitor Realm was not a good omen, so it wanted to wait for the others to succeed first. Lu Yin did not force it as he did not think that the monkey would be able to break through to Progenitor Realm. If it was that easy to become a progenitor, then there would not be so few progenitors. Over the past year, Lu Yin and Jiang Qingyue had discussed many topics related to Shi, as he also wanted to cultivate it. The dragon turtle had said that cultivating too many would be too messy, and it would not be good for Lu Yin. However, this was not a problem for him as he was more than happy to cultivate as much as possible. However, sure was a shortcut to White Cloud City's cultivation, and to this day, aside from the people of White Cloud City, no one else had managed to learn it. Lu Yin could not figure out where this mysterious power had come from, and he guessed that it might have something to do with the 3 divine artifacts that the Thunder Lord controlled. On this day they arrived at a new space-time, and the Helldrake flew in the direction that the compass had pointed him in. Suddenly, Lu Yin looked in a certain direction, took a step forward and disappeared. The Helldrake stopped, confused. In the distance, Lu Yin saw something that looked like a meteorite in front of him, and he took another step forward to chase after it. Just now this meteorite had brushed past them. It was just a meteorite, but Lu Yin had sensed the existence of a consciousness within it. Although his consciousness could not control others like the Game of a Thousand Faces, he had absorbed the consciousness of the Game of a Thousand Faces, so he was very sensitive to consciousness. This meteorite carried a boundless consciousness, which was not right. How could a meteorite have a consciousness? Chapter 30:11. Naturally, Lu Yin wanted to take a look. The meteor was headed straight for Lu Yin. Lu Yin stood in place and slowly raised his hand, aiming at the meteor. At that moment, the meteor suddenly changed directions to the left. Lu Yin's lips curled up. There was indeed a problem. This was not a meteor. He opened his celestial eye, and what was this? What appeared in his celestial eye was a mystical world that was similar to the 3,000 great worlds. There were 3 continents within this meteor, and there were people cultivating and living on them. Everything that normal people did in the universe was happening within this meteor. What was even more mysterious was that these people weren't humans but rather consciousnesses. They were all consciousnesses, and this world wasn't a major world either. It was just an illusion. More accurately speaking, the world within the meteorite was more like a game. Lu Yin took a step forward and blocked the meteor once more. The meteor changed directions again, and Lu Yin continued to block it. After a few more times, the meteor stopped and a low voice spoke out. "Your Excellency, please do not make things difficult for us. We are just losers who have lost our bodies." Lu Yin was curious. "Come out and talk." Outside the meteor, a figure slowly took shape. It was an old man, and he looked at Lu Yin with a serious expression, his eyes filled with intense fear and apprehension. This old man was a progenitor, and what appeared was not a physical body but a consciousness. It was similar to Huizu's consciousness materialization, which surprised Lu Yin. The old man bowed to Lu Yin. "Your Excellency, please let us go. We are just a group of losers who can't even keep our bodies. We are of no use to your Excellency, so please let us float in space and perish on our own." Lu Yin sized up the old man in front of him. He was clearly a consciousness body, but he was dressed like a normal person, similar to transcendence. Furthermore, this was a game world within the meteor. This should be a technologically advanced world, but a progenitor had appeared. "Are you humans?" Lu Yin asked. The old man respectfully replied, "Yes, we are humans just like your Excellency. Why did you give up your body?" The old man sighed. "We were defeated. The body is a temptation to strong enemies, and we can only escape by giving up our bodies." Lu Yin's eyes flashed. "Tell me the details." The old man did not hesitate and explained their situation. In fact, it was very simple. The Elder civilization had been defeated, and he had escaped with the entire game world as a progenitor. This game world had been created by that civilization before it was confirmed that they would be defeated. It was all for this day, and the consciousness had been transferred through the Elder's talent. In other words, those people in the meteorite game world had already forgotten that they had lost their physical bodies. They all thought that it was a real world, but it was all fake. The old man also gave up his physical body and attached his consciousness to the meteorite. He took this game world and drifted through the stars, looking for a place to settle down. This was the tragedy of civilization. Lu Yin looked at the old man. "What defeated your civilization?" The old man was apprehensive. His voice was hoarse as he said, "Eternals." Lu Yin wasn't surprised, as the Eternals needed physical bodies to transform them into corpse kings. Once they were defeated, they would abandon their physical bodies and flee. Those physical bodies were useless to the Eternals, and these people who only had their consciousnesses left were similarly useless to them. "Who from the Eternals defeated you?" Lu Yin asked. The old man was surprised. "You know about the Eternals? Their enemies are spread throughout spacetime, so of course they would know. The old man was scared. Throughout time and space. I thought we were the only ones facing the Eternals. There was a pause. The old man continued, the Eternals we faced. Not long after, Lu Yin returned to the caged WRM's back. Jiang Qingyue was curious. What happened? Lu Yin recounted what he had encountered, which surprised Elder Chan and the others. There's such a situation. Giving up their physical bodies and escaping into a fake world with only their consciousnesses is indeed very sad. They also felt helpless. Why didn't you send them to the Six Paths Society? Lu Yin said indifferently, the Divine Kingdom didn't want to go to the Six Paths Society either. They had already given up their physical bodies and escaped with only their consciousnesses. They were even less willing to go to the Six Paths Society, where they would have to face the Eternals head-on. There was one more thing that Lu Yin didn't mention. He couldn't guarantee that these people would survive. The Eternals' enemies were spread throughout spacetime, but humans didn't understand each other. This was the most terrifying thing. Even if he traveled through parallel spacetime, it would be difficult for him to unite all the humans who had been oppressed by the Eternals. In fact, the consciousnesses in the game world were useful to him. If he absorbed them, his consciousnesses would increase significantly. But how could he do it? Ghost Monkey sighed. That's fine. If they gave up their physical bodies, it would be meaningless for the Eternals to chase after them. They are no longer humans. Smart. As long as they are trash and don't care about others, they won't be in danger. This wasn't pleasant to hear, but it was true. We have to change our destination. Since we've encountered the Eternals, let's try our luck and see how strong they are in the other zones of calamity. Lu Yin's gaze was stern. The war against the Six Paths Society had come to an end. He wanted to know more about the other zones of calamity. Di Qiong belonged to another zone of calamity. The Undying God had said before his death that Wu Tian might be in the third zone of calamity. Now that he had found a new Eternals through the game world, he naturally wouldn't let them go. He wanted to see how different the other zones of calamity were from the first zone of calamity. Following the path of the game civilization, Lu Yin and the others found the Eternals. Looking at the distant Eternal Kingdom, Lu Yin hadn't seen it for a long time. The Eternals had a morbid obsession with the Eternal Kingdom, and it was the same for the other zones of calamity. The strongest person in this Eternal Kingdom is called Daoist. He was the one who defeated the progenitor of that civilization and forced them to give up their physical bodies and enter the game with their consciousness, Lu Yin said. Elder Chan said, let me make the first move. Jiang Qingyue said, if I make the first move, the Eternals won't be too wary. Lu Yin nodded, all right. Qingyue, be careful. He was confident that Daoist wouldn't even be able to escape. However, Jiang Qingyue's purpose of coming with him was to gain experience. If they encountered an progenitor, she would naturally be the one to practice. Jiang Qingyue entered the Eternal Kingdom. 2 hours later, sword light flashed in all directions. The hellworm raised its neck and bared its fangs and claws. There was no one here who could threaten it. It's begun. I wonder how long she can last without using her sure. Elder Chan was curious. The sure he was talking about was not the kind that Jiang Qingyue usually displayed. It was the sword that helped her kill the progenitor mantis. It came from the other Kong Tianzhao. Without using that power, Jiang Qingyue would find it difficult to defeat an progenitor. Just as he was thinking about it, Jiang Qingyue suddenly rushed out of the Eternal Kingdom, her shoulder bleeding. Elder Chan frowned, so fast. An expert. Lu Yin took a step forward and passed by Jiang Qingyue in the blink of an eye. In front of him, a spear approached, and Lu Yin saw the tip of the spear magnified infinitely, piercing straight at him with a pale light. Lu Yin paused and turned sideways. He stepped in reverse, reversing spacetime. Opposite him, a middle-aged man wielding a spear, Daoist. When he saw Lu Yin dodge the spear, he felt a sense of confusion. His gaze turned solemn as he pressed down with the spear, sweeping across the starry sky. Lu Yin took a step forward and arrived directly in front of Daoist. Behind him, the spear swept across. In front of him, Daoist's gaze was fierce, and an inexplicable power boiled on the surface of his body. It turned into a powerful thrust that suppressed Lu Yin, wanting to crush him to death. There were many parallel spacetimes in the universe, and the power of cultivation was also different. This Daoist's power was gentler and more resilient than astral sources. It seemed better, but it was far from being as inclusive as astral sources. In the face of this power, Lu Yin stepped in reverse again and easily walked out of De Hui's encirclement. De Hui was shocked. This person clearly had the same cultivation as that woman, but the difference in power was like heaven and earth. That woman's swordsmanship was extremely high, and she also had a power that De Hui was wary of. However, her own strength had determined that she could not defeat De Hui, but this person? De Hui did not dare to underestimate this person and stabbed out with his spear. Who are you? You forced us to abandon our bodies and you're asking us who we are? Lu Yin roared and struck out with a palm. With a bang, the powerful force of his palm twisted the spear. De Hui was shocked. No matter how much strength he used, he could not suppress Lu Yin. You're from the Toda civilization? What do you think? Impossible. De Hui pulled back his spear and stabbed out again at an extremely tricky angle. At the same time, countless spear shadows flickered. Even a powerhouse of the same realm might not be able to see through this attack. This person's power level was high and his figure was strange, but he might not be able to see through Lu Yin's spear technique. De Hui's spear technique was indeed powerful, but it was nothing to Lu Yin. Almost all of his opponents were powerhouses of the sequence laws, and even those who were not of the sequence laws had powers that could not be countered. For example, the 7-star mantis. In comparison, this De Hui was too weak. If not for the fact that he wanted to buy time for Jiang Qingyue, he would not have delayed. Just as he was thinking about this, Jiang Qingyue's sword stabbed out from behind him. This attack had hit the weakest point of De Hui's spear, and not only had she seen through the spear shadows, but she had also prevented De Hui from unleashing a second attack. De Hui took a step back and stared at Lu Yin and Jiang Qingyue. Neither of them had a higher realm than him, but they were still able to exchange blows with him. Where had this expert come from? If he could capture them and bring them back to his tribe, he would definitely be rewarded greatly. When he thought of this, his eyes blazed. I don't care who you are. Since you've made a move, don't even think about leaving this place alive. The next moment, Jiang Qingyue and De Hui clashed again. The clash of sword and spear brought forth the most primitive killing intent. Jiang Qingyue's attainments in swordsmanship were not inferior to De Hui's attainments in spear techniques, and because of her momentum she could always predict her opponent's moves. Unfortunately, her realm was too low and De Hui would always take the initiative. However, this time, De Hui would not be able to defeat Jiang Qingyue so easily. Every time Jiang Qingyue could not take it anymore, Lu Yin would step in. De Hui was extremely aggrieved, and he could gradually see that this man was supporting this woman. You're using me as a sparring partner? How dare you? You're courting death. As he spoke, a visible vortex appeared around De Hui, and Jiang Qingyue was almost swallowed up. Lu Yin raised a brow. Was this the ancestral world? Although the power they cultivated was different, the state they displayed when they reached the progenitor realm was similar. De Hui had used the ancestral world, and unless Jiang Qingyue used that white sword, she would not be his match. Jiang Qingyue retreated as there was no need to fight anymore. She would leave the rest to Lu Yin. Thank you for your support, brothers. This afternoon I will release the Progenitor Qin biography on the public account. Thank you. Chapter 30:12. Lu Yin could feel the powerful devouring force around De Hui. He raised a hand and struck out with his palm, causing an endless inner world to appear and merge with it. This strike pierced through the ancestral world and struck De Hui's body, sending him flying. De Hui spat out a mouthful of blood as his body crashed into the Eternal Kingdom. There was a loud boom as the Eternal Kingdom collapsed, and corpse kings rushed out one after another, howling at Lu Yin. Leave them to me, Elder Chan said as he landed. There was no need for Lu Yin to take care of these corpse kings. Lu Yin looked down at the ground and saw De Hui struggling to get up and take out a stargate. He took a step forward and everything around him froze. All of the Eternal Kingdom, including Elder Chan, De Hui, and even the distant caged Wurm froze. Lu Yin stepped in front of De Hui. When reverse steps stopped, De Hui looked at Lu Yin in shock. You. Lu Yin grabbed at him, and De Hui's pupils shrank as he released that vortex again. However, this time the vortex was pushing Lu Yin away, pushing him away at the same time. Lu Yin was about to attack again when De Hui suddenly turned around. Return thrust. De Hui's spear pierced through the heavens. De Hui was clearly moving forward, but the tip of the spear suddenly appeared in front of Lu Yin's eyes. Lu Yin hadn't expected this move at all, but he had reversed step. No matter how unexpected this attack was, it would be useless unless Lu Yin couldn't even react in time. Lu Yin brushed past the spear and pressed a hand onto Hui's shoulder. At the same time, the return thrust stopped and a ray of black light swept forward. This spear pierced through the void and broke through the void world. This spear was extremely powerful. Lu Yin pressed his hand onto Hui's shoulder and exerted force. Hui howled as half of his body shattered. Blood flowed onto the ground and his spear fell to the ground. Your return thrust isn't bad, Lu Yin praised. Hui knelt on one knee and coughed violently, each cough accompanied by blood. The corpse kings in the Eternal Kingdom were constantly being cleared out. Elder Chan, Jiang Qingyue, the dragon turtle and the ghost monkey all took action. Those underground who hadn't been transformed into corpse kings were released. These people were most likely from the gaming civilization. Although they had been released, their civilization had already fled. Cough cough, who are you? Hui tried his best to look up at Lu Yin as if trying to recognize him. Lu Yin looked down. Where are you from? Hui stared at Lu Yin. Where are you from? Lu Yin frowned and exerted more strength. His strength spread throughout Hui's body and tore it apart. Other than the initial howl, Big Hui did not make another sound. It endured the pain and stared at Lu Yin with bloodshot eyes. Lu Yin was surprised. You're quite stubborn. He had encountered many progenitor realm experts who were afraid of death, but he had also encountered progenitor realm experts who did not fear death. In his opinion, Hui had betrayed the human race and joined the Eternals. He was not a corpse king, but it was strange that he was not afraid of death. You should know that you have no chance of escaping once you fall into my hands. You betrayed the humans and joined the everlasting race. Now I'm giving you a chance to betray the everlasting race and tell me everything you know about the everlasting race. If you do, I'll let you live. Big Hui laughed. He was clearly in pain, but he still laughed. His expression was full of mockery. I didn't betray the humans. I grew up in the Eternal Kingdom. This is my home. Lu Yin's expression changed. Grew up in the Eternal Kingdom? I can recognize both the everlasting race and the humans. There's no such thing as betrayal. If you want to talk about betrayal, then answering your question is betrayal, Hui continued. Lu Yin stared at Hui. This was his first time encountering a human who had grown up in the Eternal Kingdom. It was not that there had never been a human before, but he had never cared. No human had ever cultivated to the progenitor realm after growing up in the Eternal Kingdom. This was the first. You can accept that humans and corpse kings are two different races? Lu Yin frowned. Hui sneered. Humans can be transformed into corpse kings. What's so unacceptable about that? You want me to betray you? Impossible. If the everlasting race wanted to transform you into a corpse king, would you be willing? I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Sense of belonging. Lu Yin saw in Hui a sense of belonging to the everlasting race, which was terrifying. Although betraying the humans was shameful, sincerely submitting to the everlasting race was a different situation. If the everlasting race's goal in establishing the Eternal Kingdom was not to target those who had been captured, but to target those who had been born in the Eternal Kingdom like Hui, then these people were fundamentally different. At that moment, the threat that the Eternal Kingdom posed to Lu Yin was infinitely greater. He realized that he had overlooked the Eternal Kingdom all this time. He had thought that it was just a base for the everlasting race to transform corpse kings, and that the so-called assimilation of humans was nothing more than a dream. But now it seemed that the everlasting race had a deeper goal. If Hui, a progenitor, was like this, then what about the others who had been born in the Eternal Kingdom? They had acknowledged the everlasting race from the bottom of their hearts, and they had even willingly become corpse kings. This was fatal. When humans faced an enemy, even if they knew that they could not win or that they were in a desperate situation, they would still erupt with unparalleled strength to resist. But if the enemy was not an enemy, would they still resist? The everlasting race had walked too far, and every step they took had a deeper meaning. When he thought of this, Lu Yin looked into the distance. Elder Chan was still cleaning up the corpse kings. There were many people in the Eternal Kingdom, and some of them had been imprisoned underground to be transformed into corpse kings. Others, like Hui, had been born in the Eternal Kingdom. These people were also enemies. But how could Lu Yin bear to deal with them? If he did not deal with them and brought them to a place where humans lived, it would be the same as releasing a group of corpse kings that would not be discovered. As Lu Yin was lost in thought, De Hui's eyes flashed and he suddenly attacked. A short spear appeared in his hand and he stabbed it at Lu Yin. Lu Yin flicked the short spear away and met De Hui's resolute gaze. He hesitated. Should he kill or continue the interrogation? Just as he thought of this, the short spear that Lu Yin had flicked away instantly turned around and attacked again. This attack was not very powerful and Lu Yin did not even plan on dodging. However, the spear brushed past his neck and pierced towards De Hui's neck. Lu Yin moved his feet in reverse, parallel to time. Everything around him froze, including the short spear that was about to pierce De Hui's body. Lu Yin gripped the short spear and stopped in reverse. Everything returned to normal, and De Hui stared blankly at the short spear that had stopped at his neck. It was happening again. He had tried to escape and failed, and now he had tried to kill himself and failed again. Could this human be able to stop time? Impossible, not even Master could do that. It looks like interrogating you is useless. You're not even afraid of death. Lu Yin clenched his right hand and with a bang the short spear shattered. He held on to the fragments. Even if he died he had to make a move. De Hui stared at Lu Yin. The fourth zone of calamity. Lu Yin's eyes widened. What did you say? De Hui clenched his fists. I'm from the fourth zone of calamity. Lu Yin frowned. Didn't you say you didn't want to say anything? De Hui exhaled and lowered his head, seemingly deep in thought. Lu Yin looked at him. De Hui spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Yin was shocked and quickly grabbed De Hui's hair to lift his head. He found that De Hui was already dead, and that mouthful of blood was his last chance at life. With a thud, Lu Yin let go and De Hui's corpse fell to the ground. The fragments of the short spear that he had been holding also fell to the ground. Soon Jiang Qingyue and Elder Chan arrived. Pathmaster. Lu Yin looked at the dead De Hui. He killed himself and did not give me a chance to act. He was not afraid of death at all. Elder Chan was shocked. He betrayed the humans and joined the Eternals. He was not afraid of death? Lu Yin's tone was heavy. We underestimated the Eternal Kingdom. He explained De Hui's origins and Elder Chan's expression became unprecedentedly solemn. Low power levels can be compensated for, but this sense of belonging cannot be eliminated. They are taking drastic measures to deprive us of our sense of belonging to our own race. So this is the Eternal Kingdom's true goal. Jiang Qingyue's expression turned ugly. No wonder the Eternals are building the Eternal Kingdom everywhere. I have to tell Father that there might be something wrong with the people we saved from the Eternal Kingdom. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Who would have thought that the people they had saved from the Eternal Kingdom would be problematic? These people were even ordinary people, but their hearts were with the Eternals. That was the most terrifying thing. The Eternal Kingdom had to be completely destroyed and not a single one would be left. Lu Yin used De Hui's blood to open his cosmic ring. There were only some resources inside, nothing special. As for the astral gate, he had taken it out when he was underground and had been preparing to escape. It should have been used to return to the fourth zone of calamity. This astral gate belonged to De Hui, and the fourth zone of calamity was connected to this spacetime, so there should be another astral gate. If Lu Yin had not been to the zone of calamity, he would not have known about this. Now he had Jailworm lead Elder Chan to search for it. He wanted to use that astral gate to head to the fourth zone of calamity. The Eternals should have 6 zones of calamity and he wanted to see how powerful the fourth zone was. Unfortunately, it was not the third zone of calamity. This spacetime was not large and the astral gate was not far from the Eternal Kingdom, so he quickly found it. Lu Yin decided to use the astral gate to head to the fourth zone of calamity. Elder Chan was worried. Are you sure you want to go, Pathmaster? Lu Yin's voice was low. I don't know the situation in the other zones of calamity. I feel uneasy. Don't worry. I'm confident. As long as I'm not discovered immediately, there should be no problems. Jiang Qingyue said seriously, be careful. Lu Yin smiled to reassure them. He looked at the astral gate and walked in. Possible he did not want to take the risk. However, there were some things that only he could do, just like how he had disguised himself as Yebwa and entered the Eternals. Anyone else would have been discovered, but not him. He was the only one who had divine power. He hoped that the fourth zone of calamity did not have someone like the ancestor. Otherwise it would not be easy to escape. He stepped into the astral gate and disappeared. 1 astral gate, 2 worlds. After stepping into the astral gate, Lu Yin did not hesitate to descend. He saw the fourth zone of calamity, which was similar to the ancestors' zone of calamity. The land was dusky and rivers of divine power flowed. In the distance, there was a dark mother tree that connected heaven and earth. It was naturally the same mother tree as the ancestors' zone of calamity. The ground was rugged with strange rocks. In the distance there was a corpse king walking, and there was also a tower that represented a progenitor. Even further away, there was a mountain range surrounded by dark clouds. It was extremely tall and filled with deep darkness. Everything seemed so quiet. Thank you. QZQ 4418 Baidu Brothers tip, I'll give it to you. Thank you. Chapter 30:13. Lu Yin landed beside a river of divine power and absorbed it naturally to prevent any powerhouses from spying on him. Even if there were, they might not attack him if they saw him absorbing divine power. Humans would subconsciously trust other humans, which was the greatest threat to the Eternal Kingdom. The Eternals would also subconsciously trust divine power, but this was all due to inertia. Knowing how to use inertia was very scary. After absorbing for 2 hours, no one came looking for him and he didn't feel like he was being spied on. Lu Yin opened his heaven's eye and casually scanned his surroundings. There was no power to spy on him and he didn't see any sequence particles. This zone of disaster seemed very calm. When he had just landed he had seen towers, but there were far fewer of them than the ancestors' zone of disaster. This was the fourth zone of disaster. Lu Yin walked along the river of divine power and approached a tower. There were more towers further away, and although they were far away, they didn't disappear from his line of sight. Suddenly he stopped and slowly turned around. Behind him a figure walked over. "Senior, are you from Black Cloud Mountain?" Lu Yin looked at the newcomer who was a thin young man. He looked young but his eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. He had probably lived for a long time. "What's the matter?" The man smiled. "I'm Wei Shu. May I know Senior's name?" "It's none of your business." Lu Yin was very cold. Before entering the fourth zone of disaster he had used illusionary bubbles to change his appearance. He was neither Lu Yin nor Yi Bo. Now that he was in the fourth zone of disaster, the familiar environment made it easy for him to assume Yi Bo's persona. Wei Shu didn't get angry at Lu Yin's coldness. Instead he smiled. "I saw Senior following the river of divine power all the way here. You should be from Black Cloud Mountain, right? May I ask if Senior is looking for a true god's ultimate technique?" Lu Yin had a strange expression. Was this guy in cahoots with the seven friends? They had appeared in the same way. The seven friends had appeared when Lu Yin was walking along the river of divine power and had told him about the true god's ultimate technique. Now this guy was asking the same question. If Senior doesn't want to talk about it, then Junior won't ask. However, forgive me for being blunt, but Senior can't keep searching like this. The zone of disaster is far larger than the average spacetime. It's impossible to follow the river of divine power. Senior, have you ever thought of working together? Wei Shu suggested. Lu Yin looked away. This was similar to what the seven friends had said. Could it be that there was always a group of everlastingly searching for the true god's ultimate technique? That was interesting. How? Lu Yin asked. Wei Shu was delighted. First of all, are you really looking for the true god's ultimate technique? Lu Yin looked at him coldly. What do you think? Wei Shu was not embarrassed. It is only a rumor that there is a true god's ultimate skill under the God Power Lake. However, no one has been able to prove that they have obtained it. Therefore, if Senior is still suspicious, the chances of finding it will be even lower. I hope that we can find someone who is completely convinced of the existence of the true god's ultimate skill, even if we have to spend countless years searching together. Lu Yin raised a brow. No proof? Back then, seven friends had said that it was rumored that someone from the seven sky gods had obtained the ultimate technique of a true god. However, this Wei Shu had said that there was no proof. Did he know about the seven sky gods? The seven sky gods was a name given to the Six Direction Society by the ancient ancestors' Calamity Domain. Lu Yin knew about this, but how could the other Calamity Domains not know about the seven sky gods? Or did Wei Shu not know? I've heard that someone has obtained it, Lu Yin said. Wei Shu's eyes lit up. Lord Black Wuxian? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Yes. Wei Shu laughed. I knew it. Master Black Wuxian wouldn't lie to me. When you invited me to join the eternal race, you told me that there would be some here. A true god's ultimate technique. Master wouldn't lie to me. Huh. Lu Yin looked at Wei Shu. This person knew about Black Wuxian, but he didn't know about the rumor that the 7 sky gods might have obtained a true god's ultimate technique. Did this mean that the 7 sky gods might not have existed in this calamity domain, but Black Wuxian had? Senior, let's search together. Master Black Wuxian is one of the 3 pillars and 6 boundless. Since he said so, he definitely exists. Although I can't cultivate God Force yet after so many years, I've drawn a map of the calamity domain's God Force river. It should be able to help Senior. Wei Shu was excited. Lu Yin was astonished. You drew a map of the God Force river? Wei Shu said, that's right. Although the true god's ultimate technique is below, I believe that you'll be able to see something from the map. Let me see it, Lu Yin said. Wei Shu was alert. I can show it to Senior, but since we've agreed to search together, there are some things that need to be made clear. Sure. Senior, please follow me to the tower. Wei Shu's tower wasn't far from here, and this tower was Lu Yin's target. After coming to the 4th calamity domain, he naturally wanted to understand the situation. Who would have thought that Wei Shu would come knocking on his door? There were maids standing outside the tower, just like the Xi ancestors' calamity domain. Wei Shu led the way and the 2 entered the tower. Wei Shu went straight to the point and told Lu Yin about the mission and rewards of searching for the true god's ultimate technique. Senior, my request isn't too much, right? Wei Shu asked. Lu Yin was calm. Who else are you looking for the true god's ultimate technique with? Wei Shu's eyes flickered. Senior, you're the first. I'm not stupid. That's true. If Senior doesn't believe me, you can go and ask. There are less than 5 human powerhouses like us in the 4th calamity domain. The rest are all extremely strong corpse kings, and they're just puppets that listen to Master Black Wuxian's orders. They're meaningless. Master Black Wuxian isn't in the 4th calamity domain most of the time, and it's been a long time since a new powerhouse joined the 4th calamity domain. Wei Shu said. He then looked at Lu Yin curiously. When did Senior join? Lu Yin was indifferent. Before you. Wei Shu was shocked. Senior knows when I joined? Cut the crap. Mapping the God Force river isn't difficult. Although your request isn't too much, I don't want to be fooled. Who knows how many people you've given your map to? Lu Yin said. Wei Shu smiled confidently. The God Force river map I'm talking about isn't limited to the 4th calamity domain. Lu Yin raised his brows. Other calamity domains? Wei Shu's face was solemn. Other than the 1st calamity zone, the other 5 calamity zones would occasionally interact with each other. The corpse kings are dead, but humans are alive. We need to interact and share information, and this godly power river map is one of those things. The true god's ultimate technique doesn't have to be in the 4th calamity domain. We need to search the entire calamity domain to find it. Lu Yin praised, you're really resourceful. Wei Shu was humble. Senior, you flatter me. How about it? This map is enough to negotiate with Senior. Lu Yin shook his head. Even if I can see the entire calamity domain's God Force river map, it's useless if I can't go to the other calamity domains. Wei Shu was surprised. Why can't I go? The chosen of deities is about to begin. When the time comes... He suddenly paused and stared at Lu Yin in shock. Senior, you don't know? Lu Yin knew that he had exposed a flaw and waved his hand. His speed was so fast that an ordinary progenitor wouldn't be able to block it. However, Wei Shu reacted quickly and turned around to shatter the tower. He screamed, "Enemy attack!" Lu Yin's expression changed and he flew towards the starry door without hesitation. This Wei Shu wasn't weak, but he didn't want to fight with Lu Yin and had instead fled. It was no wonder that he could cooperate with the other calamity domains to map the God Force river. Lu Yin had underestimated him. Lu Yin took a few steps into the sky. On the ground of the calamity domain, figures soared into the sky to attack him, but they couldn't catch up to him. At this moment, a crisis suddenly appeared. Lu Yin looked towards the distant mountain shrouded in black clouds. He opened his heaven's eye and met a pair of cold eyes. In the next moment, a palm imprint appeared in front of him. Lu Yin was shocked. Empty palm? With a bang, Lu Yin was struck by a palm imprint that was too fast. It was an invisible palm imprint. It was an empty palm. Even Lu Yin almost couldn't react to an empty palm executed by an extremely strong powerhouse. Fortunately, he had used the empty palm at the last moment. Although the palm imprint was powerful, it couldn't break through the empty palm. It only managed to push Lu Yin back. Above the mountain shrouded in black clouds, a man stood tall and attacked again. This time it was an empty palm. Lu Yin looked at the man deeply and stepped backwards towards the starry door. The man attacked the starry door with a palm, and Lu Yin attacked at the same time, intercepting the man's empty palm in midair. The void exploded and Lu Yin's expression turned solemn. This person's palm force was very strong, but he could still withstand it. The starry door was close. Just as Lu Yin was about to cross it, a terrifying gravitational force suddenly appeared and almost dragged him down. He saw a sequence particle. It was that man, a powerhouse of the sequence laws. The sequence particle connected to the sky and tried to drag Lu Yin down. The man was also heading towards Lu Yin. Around him, progenitor realm corpse kings appeared and attacked Lu Yin. Lu Yin exhaled and stepped backwards to parallel time. Everything around him was silent, and he saw that the man's palm was about to hit the starry door. Once the starry door was destroyed, Lu Yin would have to return to the primordial space if he wanted to escape. It would not be easy to find Elder Chan and the others then, and the Eternals would definitely attack that space-time. Elder Chan and the others would be in great danger. Fortunately, he had used reverse space-time at the critical moment. Lu Yin took a few steps forward and stepped through the starry door. When he turned around, he saw that the powerhouse of the sequence laws was already very close. When Lu Yin stepped through the starry door and left, the powerhouse of the sequence laws only saw Lu Yin disappear in an instant. He waved his hand and the empty palm that was about to hit the starry door was redirected. He then stepped through the starry door and chased after Lu Yin. Lu Yin stepped through the starry door and saw the hellworm in front of him. Elder Chan and the others were on its back. "Stay away," Lu Yin barked. The hellworm hurriedly flew backwards at an extremely fast speed. It was very good at escaping. Lu Yin retreated a few steps. He had the time to destroy the starry door, but he did not. As long as it was not a powerhouse like the 7 sky gods chasing after him, he was confident that he could fight. Furthermore, this person had actually used empty palm, which puzzled Lu Yin. Was this person related to the 5th mainland? Soon the man stepped through the starry door and stared at Lu Yin. The two stood in the starry sky and looked at each other. "Why didn't you destroy the starry door?" the man asked. Lu Yin stared at the man. "You are not a corpse king. What about Dai Hui? Who are you? Did you use the power of time just now? Why did you use empty palm?" Both of them were asking questions with no intention of answering. Chapter 30:14. The man stared at Lu Yin. "You actually know about the emptiness palm? Seems like you've been to the Starfall Sea." Lu Yin sighed. "So you really are from the 5th mainland. Are you a traitor? You have something that I want to know and I have something that you want to know. It's just a matter of who can ask until the end." The man attacked and it was still an empty palm strike. He did not underestimate Lu Yin just because he was not a progenitor. This palm strike was even more ferocious and faster than before. Lu Yin raised his hand as well, but it was empty. Bang, the two palms collided and the void collapsed, spreading out in all directions, revealing a world of nothingness. Lu Yin was astonished. This person had actually managed to block his palm in his normal state? It should be known that with his strength, apart from the Mavis clan and the Star Devourer, it was very difficult for him to meet a match. Even without visualization and an infinite inner world, even if the other party was a sequence precepts powerhouse, they had yet to use sequence precepts. On the other hand, the man on the other side was similarly surprised. This person was indeed very strong. He was clearly not an elite of the progenitor realm, yet he was able to block his palm strike. Who exactly had come from the 5th continent? Out of the 6 zones of calamity of the Eternals, only the 1st zone of calamity had attacked the primordial space. He had stayed in the 4th zone of calamity for too long, and He Wuxian could not return. Therefore he did not understand the current situation of the primordial space. But it didn't matter. He would understand very soon. The man attacked again. This time it was the clear void palm. Lu Yin also used the clear sky palm. Palm after palm collided, causing the heavens to be torn apart. The man continuously increased the strength of his palm and Lu Yin did the same. One was a powerhouse of the sequence laws and his realm was very high. The other's strength far surpassed the imagination of ordinary people. When their palms collided, they seemed to be able to increase the power of their attacks without limit. In the distance, Elder Chan was astonished. Why was this person using the same palm technique as the Dao Master? As their palms collided, no one took the initiative to use any other power. Finally, as Lu Yin visualized the Akalanatha king's elephant, his strength increased explosively, and he managed to suppress the man with his Kongming palm. The man displayed a new palm technique that was similar to the emptiness palm and the emptiness palm. It was a single palm strike, but this one was very gentle. No matter how much Lu Yin tried to increase his strength, it was all absorbed by the palm like a sponge. Lu Yin knew that this should be the palm technique that could be learned from the 1,000 stacks in Chongshan Dojo. His strength continued to increase, and the more ferocious his palm force became, the more it seemed to be able to be neutralized. This palm didn't strike back as if it only wanted to neutralize Lu Yin's attack. The man continued to stare at Lu Yin. Could it be that this person didn't learn the third palm? With his strength he would definitely be able to learn it. Since that was the case, his gaze trembled. Bang, another palm struck out, and Lu Yin's expression changed as a powerful force blasted towards him. He almost lost his footing and the man in front of him struck out again. Something was wrong. Lu Yin stared at the man's palm. This was yet another new palm technique that he could learn from the 10,000 stacks. Not only was this palm gentle enough to dissolve Lu Yin's attack, but it was also able to instantly display a power that was comparable to Lu Yin's own attack. No, it was a transformation. Not only had this palm dissolved Lu Yin's attack, but it had also used some unknown method to turn Lu Yin's attack into a counterattack that struck back at Lu Yin. The more powerful Lu Yin's attacks were, the more powerful the counterattack would be. He immediately unleashed his boundless inner world. The threads continued to fuse together and his power increased explosively. The man was shocked. This person only had the strength of a half-martial ancestor, yet he was able to display such power. Ordinary martial ancestor realm experts were no match for him at all. It seemed like De Hui was doomed. Lu Yin did not believe that this man could counter every one of his palms. He exerted his power to the extreme without using the power of confinement. There was a loud bang and Lu Yin retreated step by step. He had managed to counterattack. The man retracted his hand and looked at Lu Yin in amazement. You're the first palm strike that can make me so cautious that I don't even have the confidence to counterattack. My name is Silent Void. You're qualified to know my name. Are you from the Fifth Mainland? Lu Yin asked in a low voice. Silent Void nodded. That's right. Did you betray humanity? You could say that. Why? Silent Void looked up. Everyone has their own goals. Race and physical bodies are just external appearances. Even if I lose my physical body, I'm still me. Why should I stick to humanity? Lu Yin shouted, Nonsense. Black Wuxian was trying to tempt you. What benefits did he give you? Silent Void clenched his fists and then relaxed them. I'll let you feel that it's fate that you were able to obtain my legacy and meet me here. Since you hate the Eternals so much, I'll kill you and prevent you from becoming a corpse king. This is my respect for you. Lu Yin moved his arm. I'll give you respect as well. I'll let you atone for your betrayal. There was a whoosh as Silent Void struck out with a palm. You haven't learned the third palm strike. Look closely, this is the fourth palm strike. It's called Return Void. The Return Void palm was a palm technique that could return one's own strength to oneself. Lu Yin had not been able to do so even with his visualization and his limitless inner world. Now that he was facing the Return Void palm again, he countered with a palm strike. Under Silent Void's astonished gaze, his palm suddenly withered. Boom. There was a loud explosion and Lu Yin felt himself being struck by a huge force. It was the force that he had used to attack Silent Void, but it had been reflected back by the boundless palm. However, this force had also been absorbed by the boundless palm, and the boundless palm had begun to recover. Silent Void was stunned as he stared at Lu Yin's withered palm. Lu Yin had relied on the Return Void palm technique to continuously increase his strength. Even when the force was returned to him, he continued to increase his strength. Silent Void had said that he was not confident that he would be able to completely return that palm strike, but Lu Yin's current increase in strength was definitely beyond his expectations. There was a loud bang as the void exploded between the two palms, transforming into a pushing force that pushed both of them away. Lu Yin's palm returned to its original state. He had completely absorbed the rebounding force and then struck out again. This was why the Return Void palm could not be returned. Silent Void looked at his own palm and then back at Lu Yin. His gaze was no longer filled with amazement but rather fear. You actually broke through the return void palm's upper limit. Lu Yin clenched his fists. It's just child's play. It's time to get serious. Silent Void's eyes widened and his entire aura changed. He became vigorous and heavy, and even his breathing caused the void to collapse. Lu Yin's expression turned serious as he had seen the sequence particles. Although he did not have as many as wood carvings, they were comparable to void 5 tastes. This person had originated from the primordial space, which meant that he should not be too old. Perhaps he was from the Daoist sect of the 9 mountains and 8 seas, or even older. Someone who possessed the strength of sequence laws should not be unknown in the 5th mainland. There was only one explanation. He had been enticed by Blacklist to join the 4th zone of calamity before he had attained the strength of sequence laws. Is this what Blacklist gave you? Lu Yin asked in a low voice. Silent Void's gaze turned cold. You really can see the laws. Although I don't know how you can see the laws when you're not even a progenitor. Just because you can see them doesn't mean that you can resist them. If I hadn't come to the 4th zone of calamity, I would never have been able to reach this level of strength. So what if you can reach this level of strength? You can only stay in the 4th zone of calamity. Even if I give you eternal life, you'll only be able to control the 4th zone of calamity. He's a lackey of the Eternals. Silent Void shook his head. You don't understand the persistence of power. What did you just use? It's a very strange technique. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. With this person's strength, he did not know that things would move in the opposite direction when pushed to the extreme. Sure enough, he had come to the 4th zone of calamity before he had become famous in the 9 mountains and 8 seas. Feel it for yourself. Silent Void suddenly raised a hand and unleashed an emptiness palm. An invisible palm imprint accompanied by sequence particles crashed down. Lu Yin's scalp went numb as this palm had completely changed. His feet were moving in reverse, parallel to time, and everything around him was still. However, this time his footsteps were incomparably heavy, and it was extremely difficult for him to move in reverse. With sequence laws, it would not be so easy for him to move in parallel to time. In an instant, his surroundings returned to normal, and the emptiness palm brushed past him, shattering the void. Lu Yin looked back and he had almost been hit. At that moment he felt his scalp go numb again as Silent Void attacked again. This time it was not a single palm strike, but rather dozens of them at the same time, covering the void. Even if Lu Yin could move in reverse and parallel to time, he would not be able to dodge them all in an instant. Silent Void released a power from his heart that isolated spacetime. The emptiness palm swept past the emptiness palm, and some of the sequence particles were restrained. Lu Yin attacked at the same time, using the principle that things would move in the opposite direction when pushed to the extreme. His body was struck by 3 consecutive palms and he was forced to retreat. Fortunately, he was able to block them all. Silent Void was stunned. This was impossible. It was already inconceivable that this person could block his normal attacks, but now he was even able to block attacks from sequence laws? While Silent Void was still in shock, Lu Yin hurriedly stepped in reverse and took the initiative to attack. A general appointment platform appeared. With my blood, I summoned the general. It would not be easy to fight Silent Void, and even a sneak attack with the slippers might not succeed. This kind of powerhouse would not lower his guard. Lu Yin did not plan on hiding anything, as he would not let Silent Void leave this battle alive. Silhouettes appeared one after another. More than 10 progenitor realm cultivators were summoned and charged toward solitary emptiness. Silent Void's eyes narrowed. General appointment platform? Lu family? You're from the Lu family. Around him, progenitors charged forward one after another. Silent Void raised a palm, wiping out a progenitor with a single strike. These ordinary progenitors were useless against him. The Cyclops King and the 7-star Mantis were summoned, and Lu Yin felt dizzy for a moment. As expected, there was a burden, and the power of the general appointment platform could not be used indefinitely. At his current level, he could only summon 20 generals at most. Although that was not much, these 20 were all progenitors. The Cyclops King's body was surrounded by the halo of the emptiness world, and he punched at Silent Void. The 7-star Mantis waved his arm and slashed out. Silent Void's palm collided with the Cyclops King's. The Cyclops King had terrifying strength, as his body was large enough to suppress Silent Void. However, Silent Void's laws were not something that the Cyclops King could resist. Although the halo of the emptiness world was somewhat erased, the remaining laws still shattered the Cyclops King's arm. At the same time, Silent Void was pushed back by the Cyclops King's explosive strength. In that instant, the seven-star mantis spread his 6 pairs of wings and appeared behind Silent Void at a speed comparable to that of time, slashing down with his arm. With a hiss, a large wound appeared on Silent Void's back. He turned around and struck out with his palm, causing the seven-star mantis to disappear in an instant. Speed was different from battle techniques. Lu Yin's reverse step would be restrained by the laws of the emptiness world, but the seven-star mantis relied on his own speed. Progenitor Chen's biography has been posted on the public account, and you can see it by following the author, Drifting Wind. Thank you for your support. Thank you.